Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. All right. And I do believe that we are live. Hello, hello. Anybody out there? Oh, goodness gracious. Yes, we are live. Yes, we are live. Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of season 8 of The Sausage Factory. I'm your moderator, Pizzell. And joining me tonight, I have got Stone Gassman. What's up, Stone? How you doing, man?
Doing great, Piz. Doing great. Just working and living the dream up in New York City. And gladly I didn't run into the New York Ripper on the way home. So didn't have to worry about that. But I'm ready to talk about Lucio Fulci. I hope I pronounced it right.
Lucio Fulci. That's right. You got it. You got it.
Yes.
Awesome. Yes, you're very fortunate that you did not run afoul of the New York Ripper, because he is he's a wily fellow. You'll hear him coming though, because he's got that duck voice, and you know. exactly. Oh my goodness. Also with me tonight is Lorne. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm okay, Piz. I've survived your wrath after not reviewing Friday the 13th Part 5 and ready to go on to some safer territory such as duck-voiced killers, zombies on islands, and killer tarantulas that might be made of pipe cleaners.
That sounds like fun to me.
I love Lucio Fulci. He is one of my very favorite directors. So this is actually really in my wheelhouse, which is nice coming after weeks of Corey's and white trash Michael Myers and whatever that movie with the vehicles was that you guys laughed about.
Now I saw you many times.
It was the least painful. No, actually, you know what the problem was? That you guys laughing was funnier than the movie, but listen, it was the least painful of them all. I wouldn't even call it a bad movie, but you know what? We're going to talk about some great movies tonight, so that's exciting.
Yes, we will be talking about some very strange, very gory, very dreamlike, but very interesting. Was a very interesting filmmaker. That is for sure. That's for sure. So let's see what's going on out in the chat tonight. Let's see who's with us so far tonight. Barbecue Network, how are you tonight, sir? Casey Robertson, hello. Borderline 11, Joe Bob Tarheel. How you guys doing tonight? I do not like Frasier. I don't think I've ever seen an episode of Frasier, and I used to play fantasy football, Barbecue Network, but I've not in a very, very long time. But I hope you guys are all doing well tonight. Hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving. How was your guys' Thanksgiving? Stone, Lauren, what did you guys do for Thanksgiving?
I did nothing, so Lauren could take this one.
Just went over the parents. I made my infamous jalapeno roasted garlic mashed potatoes, which it was requested this year that I not go quite as hot, so I did not. So everything was good there. Then I went home and made it hot with the leftovers. But no, I mean, Thanksgiving isn't a big holiday for me. I jokingly suggest that people, if you didn't invite Indians over your house, that you're doing it wrong. But whatever. It's a day with family. It's a day to get away, not do your normal stuff. So I appreciate that. How about you, Piz? What did you do?
My brother and I went to a Cracker Barrel, which has been our custom for many, many years now.
Okay.
And we got a nice meal at Cracker Barrel, and Jeremy quizzed our waitress about horror movies and about cartoon series, and she knew a few of them, so she got a nice little tip, got a little extra for her knowledge, and pretty good, pretty laid back, chill Thanksgiving. So, yeah.
Nice.
So no turkey, none of that good stuff, Stone?
Well, I mean, the problem with me is that I'm a total introvert. So I mean, and my entire family is pretty much dead. So I mean, I I could have gotten dressed and gone out to a I guess a VFW or something and had turkey, but to me it's just another day, and I just decided to stay in and have some Mexican food.
Very nice.
So
Very nice.
yeah. So I just chilled and everything. And to answer Barbecue Network's question, I have not seen The Irishman yet. However, I'm seriously considering it this weekend.
I hear that thing is like 3.5 hours long.
Yeah, it's a long one.
Wow,
it's a long one.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've only heard very good things about it, so
Nothing but great things, actually.
yeah, I may look into it and check it out for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Rather go see it than Black Christmas, right?
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd rather go see the 3.5-hour movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Black Christmas. When does the Black Christmas remake? Oh, Friday the 13th.
Yeah,
Correct.
next Friday the 13th.
Because that's not heresy at all.
Well, it's going to have some competition because next week on Friday the 13th, the Sausage Factory is doing a special episode with a special guest. So it may have some... the smart people will stay home and watch us instead of going and watching that. That's what I'm saying. The real horror fans will stay home on Friday the 13th
Listen,
and watch the Sausage Factory.
That got real serious. You just threw down to all the people who had any interest in Black Christmas. You're going to get a lot of angry memes coming your way.
I'm sure I will. Oh, goodness.
I can't imagine who would send you one of those.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Do you have a favorite food at McDonald's?
Favorite food at McDonald's? That's a good question. Favorite food at McDonald's? Actually, that's a good question. The holiday pies. I've actually been kind of keeping an eye on if they've got the holiday pies out yet. And I don't know if... I'm assuming they do, but I've just not swung by McDonald's lately to get one. I was surprised because Jeremy and I went out for a burger run today. And I thought he would want to go to McDonald's, but he wanted to go to Dairy Queen instead. So that's where we went. But let's see, got some new people hanging out with us in the chat. Devin Dungan, hello. How are you, sir? Hope you're doing well. Marbsy, hello. How are you doing tonight? Pierce, hello. What's up, buddy? The Irishman was good, though they could have shaved about 30 or so minutes off of it. Okay. Let's see. Adam, the motion picture history horror fan. How are you tonight, sir? Hope you're doing well. Borderline 11 says, I just met Kerry Elwes in Louisville a couple weeks ago and asked him about Black Christmas. It seems as if he's proud of his performance in the film itself. Well, I think he's contractually obligated to say that he's proud of the movie. It's kind of like when a celebrity goes on a talk show and they know they're in a really bad movie and they ask them about the movie. They're just like, "Oh, it was so much fun. It was really fun. I had a great time making that movie." So that's yeah. But
I'm betting he had a better time at the car dealership after he got off the set.
That's true. That's true. So what have you guys been up to since? Well, we've taken a couple of weeks off. Have you guys seen any good movies?
Well, I've been able to watch a couple of Robert Altman films. I caught up with some of his 70s work, like Nashville and Thieves Like Us, and also Three Women with Sissy Spacek and Shelley Duvall. Excellent movie. I don't know. I just had a Robert Altman itch for a little bit, and I still want to see Hellfest because I know that Lorne recommended it to me. I still have it down on my list. And this weekend on Netflix, I'm finally getting Endgame. What's up?
Stone, you don't live far enough. You don't live far enough away not to have seen Hellfest by now. If you don't watch your ass, I'm coming over the river, and we're gonna take care of that the hard way. Okay?
Oh, no problem, dude. No problem. No problem. I understand.
You have a week. Actually, a week and a day, I guess.
Week and a day. Absolutely.
What about you, Lauren? You seen any good movies lately, or bad movies, or indifferent movies?
Both, all of the above.
Hmm.
So I saw Ford versus Ferrari, which I'm not a sports movie fan at all because I'm not a sports fan at all, but it's thankfully not really a sports movie. Much like the original Rocky, it's more about personal opposition and making the changes in your life that are necessary to grow. And it just uses kind of auto racing as a backdrop. Long movie, could have lost some time off of it, I think, without hurting itself, but it was kind of a likable enough feature. It has to be if I actually, liked that cast, because with Matt Damon in it, that should have been like kryptonite, but he's actually okay in it. I don't think anyone was taking it terribly serious. The acting's all pretty broad, but I enjoyed it. It's a good film. I also saw Knives Out, which is a disaster. It's a nonsensical film that makes no sense. It pretends to make sense, and the moment you actually start thinking about their solution to the problem, you realize it's just crap. And you can tell it was written as a index card film, whereas, they started at the end of the film and filled out individual scenes on index cards and worked backwards and shuffled in clues. It's an age-old way to write mysteries, but you can also tell that no longer works with the studio system, because clearly in the later drafts, people didn't understand why those clues were there, and it's just a mess. It's a good-looking film. The performances are all like bad stage performances. Everyone's talking as if their voices need to hit the back row. It's really over the top, and I guess you'd think it would be kitschy at the same time, but it really isn't. It's really dry. It's just, I did not enjoy basically anything about it. So I'm kind of blown away that people are giving it good reviews, because it's a mess. And finally, just today, I finally got my. There's a movie called Cat that I imported from Japan. Well, I kind of imported it from Japan on VHS. And it turned out to not be the same film as I thought it was. But as sad as it is that it's not the crazy Korean cat from outer space on a rampage that might be fighting a Cthulhian monster at the end film, instead, it's a film about a cat. It's a German film about a cat that gets under a voodoo spell that's laid on him by a guy who looks like John Carpenter after he sacrifices a chicken, and decides to go on a murder spree after it grows to about the size of a lion. This exists.
Wow.
And it was in its original German with Japanese subtitles, no English, and it's incredibly fun. It's not a good film, but I had a ball with it. It's I think that's what I'm going to be doing for a while, is trying to find real obscurities that are just kind of lost.
Was that the only resource for the Cat that you wanted to see? Because the trailer that I saw for the Cat movie was absolutely mind-blowing.
Well, this in its own way is pretty mind-blowing, and the final, not shot, but the final thing that happens in the film blew my mind in a kind of holy shit, they went there type of way. I won't say it's a great film, but it's a good B movie. As far as the other Cat, I'm still on the lookout for the Korean Cat film from 1992. I have no leads on it. I can't find any release information for home viewing. And that might be regional, so maybe I need to get Google working on translating some web pages from overseas. I don't know. But and yes, Barbecue Network has pointed out this is not the movie Cats that's coming out, and I guarantee this is a better movie.
Although the Cats that's coming out might be scarier, because like the CGI cat people things, that just looks really, I don't know, that's nightmarish in my opinion.
Yeah, but I don't think that film has a scene in which a lion-sized house cat pulls a woman out of the back of a minivan, bites her in half, and throws the minivan on its side. Wow.
That sounds pretty awesome. That sounds pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, how sad is it that I'm reduced to just kind of searching out these obscurities from overseas that are not even available in my native language, because I'm just kind of bored with what's coming out here.
I hear you.
It's not good. Yeah, it's not good.
Well, we've got Black Christmas next week to look forward to. Christian's with us. Christian, what's up, man? How are you?
What's going on? You guys hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm bummed out, man. I missed a great cat discussion because I watched that trailer.
Well, actually, Lauren did not get that movie. He got a different cat movie, but it's also like a big giant killer cat movie. I'm down for any kind of giant killer cat movie. So,
all right.
The weirder the better.
And don't worry, I'm not done. We will make this happen.
But what's been up with you, Christian? How was your Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving was good. Family spread out now, but we made do. I had my wife's dad come into town, hang out with us. Had a good time, man. Didn't really get much Black Friday deals. Vinegar Syndrome was a nightmare. The Jack Frost deal. My buddy wanted the slip. I didn't really care either way about getting Jack Frost on Blu-ray, but he was wanting that slip so bad. Piz refreshing the site every 30 seconds. Something happened. He goes, Christian, I went to go check, gone.
Wow.
So I didn't bother. I was gonna get few other titles, but they didn't really do much. Piz, they kind of just put whatever they had to get rid of on sale. I mean, they had some decent stuff.
Well, they had a lot of stuff that they had a lot of older releases just with like new fancy slipcases, which, some of those were like the Jack Frost, for instance. That's an older release, but it's,
right.
They threw it out there with the new slipcase. I did manage to get the, and I didn't do a whole lot of Black Friday shopping either, but I did manage to get the Vinegar Syndrome Spookies release with the really cool slip cover.
Right, I saw that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. That thing's got 2 feature-length like making of documentaries on it. I mean,
that's more effort than anyone put into that movie while making it.
I don't know. I love that movie because I don't know.
It's 3 movies. It's 3 movies.
Stone's showing off his Gwendolyn release.
Yeah, I'm jealous of that. I want. Yeah. So if wait, Stone, if you don't see Hellfest by next week, I'm not only coming over and roughing you up, I'm going to steal that video.
I promise.
So now you have flesh in the game. You have flesh in the game.
Remember that original cover from the VHS days?
Is that the reverse of it?
That's just classic, right? Yeah. That's the reverse of it.
That's cool.
I still have to listen to the audio commentary with the 2 stars, so I'll let you know what I think of that when I check it out.
Yeah, I need. Yeah,
I'm sure it's superb.
I need to check that out. I need to check that movie out. It sounds right up my alley. But yeah, I was
Don't
really.
Buy it.
Go ahead.
Don't buy it before Christmas.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, I was really psyched about Spookies because that's one that I loved as a kid, and it just never made the jump to even like a official DVD release in the U.S. And yeah, it's an unfinished. Well, actually, I think the movie was finished. It was originally shot as Twisted Souls. And then, according to what I heard, like the financier got cold feet and he wanted more things added to it. So he hired a former porn star to direct these like other sequences. And so that's why the movie feels like, 2 movies kind of jammed together. But yeah, I don't know. I really like that movie, and I'm glad that it's coming out on Blu-ray from Vinegar Syndrome and that they're rolling out the red carpet for it. So
hell yeah.
I'm happy about that.
I got a little bit of the blues when I didn't order anything that Black Friday. So I remember I went ahead and I got that Phantom of the Paradise. And man, it had been since I was a puppy when I saw it with my dad. But I remember my dad loved that movie. I was trying to watch it last night while I was going to sleep. I couldn't sit still, Piz. I don't know if you see. I know Lauren's a big fan. Piz, it was 10:30. I was getting up. They were playing all this music. I was pumped up. So I had to turn it off. Which is the best compliment I can give a movie. I had to turn it off to go to sleep. So I can't wait to finish that again. It's been so long. So and Dolly Dearest, Piz, we got Dolly Dearest coming.
Oh, that's right, Dolly Dearest. Yeah, Dolly Dearest is coming. Yep.
I was so shocked that it's Vinegar Syndrome, and I was for sure it was going to be Vestron. For sure it was going to be Vestron.
Yeah. It's coming out. That's all that matters. It's coming out. But Vinegar Syndrome will do it right. They'll do it justice.
Did anybody pick up Tammy and the T-Rex?
I can't say I did.
Nope.
I say I did.
I want to see it in 4K. I definitely want to see it in 4K. I want to see that movie in 4K.
I'd be willing to watch it just to see John Carl Buechler's gore put back in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the strangest flick, man. The strangest flick. I don't know. But on the topic of Black Friday shopping, did anybody do any other Black Friday shopping? Pick up any Blu-rays or anything like that during Black Friday?
Oh, nope.
No.
I tore it up last year, man. That's when I got my TV and stuff, you know. But this year, man, I just took it easy, man.
Yeah,
I took it easy.
I really didn't see that many great deals, to be honest. I mean, nothing that I mean, there were good deals, but there was nothing that I really needed to own. So I don't know. Got a couple of things, but that's about it. Let's see. We've got Steak Sauce in the chat. Steak Sauce, what's up? How are you doing, buddy? Hope you're doing well. My old buddy Malek is in the chat. How you doing, bud? What did you guys out there? Any Black Friday deals that you guys were able to take advantage of? I see some people saying that they've been really looking forward to the Fulci retrospective. So, yeah, cool.
For the record, I don't have anything against a porn director doing a horror movie, considering which one of my favorite Friday the 13th are.
Well, she was a former porn actress that somehow landed the gig of directing these extra scenes.
Well, hey, I'm not gonna discriminate.
Yeah, let's not discriminate. Resurrection Reviews, our old pal Steven is watching with us tonight also. How's it going? Shane Rod said he got a 65-inch 4K TV for $278. Not bad. Not bad at all.
Damn.
Let's see. Bought a Fire Stick on Amazon. Very nice. Very nice Resurrection Reviews.
Somebody's going to hack it.
Hack that sucker. Dollar Tree deals. There are a lot of actually, I saw some people posting like Dollar Tree Blu-ray deals. I didn't think the Dollar Tree would be a happening spot for Blu-rays, but hey.
How much more of a deal can it be at the Dollar Tree?
Oh, wow.
Buy 3, get 1 free, maybe.
Well, guys, let's go ahead and let's dive. Unless anybody has anything else they want to say before we dive into our Lucio Fulci retrospective. Nothing? Okay.
No.
I don't know why I closed him out. I had his IMDb resume pulled up, and then for some reason I closed it out. Well, I know, I mean, Lucio Fulci as a director was pretty prolific. I mean, he's got like 66 directing credits on IMDb. He directed across pretty much every genre. He did, of course, horror. He did action. He did freaking musicals. I mean, this guy did it all. In his early career, he did a lot of documentary shorts. And he did a number of films up until Don't Torture a Duckling, which really my knowledge of Lucio Fulci starts with Don't Torture a Duckling. But Lauren, I know you're a big fan of Fulci. Are you familiar with any of his films pre-Duckling?
Yeah, sure. I pretty much start looking at Lucio Fulci's catalog with Beatrice Cenci and One on Top of the Other, but certainly Lizard in a Woman's Skin is a favorite. Fulci had an interesting view of the giallo, which was a lot more pure to the literary sources than a lot of the other directors. Like by the time that Argento and Martino kind of get involved, they were already kind of working off of what other people were doing. Fulci came a little bit earlier than them, was a little bit more psychedelic, which makes sense because the heyday of the giallo as a book was actually the 60s, and there's a lot of free love and drugs that were a cornerstone of those books. So Fulci was kind of more pure in his giallos, which makes for a really, really, really unconventional viewing experience. You're not exactly sure what you're watching at times, simply because the films have no problem going out into just complete psychedelics. But before that, I mean, I'm not I'm aware of Fulci's movies before the Giallo period, but besides what I've read in reference and what I have bought but never watched, I really haven't seen any of his comedies or his rock and roll movies or his spy films. That's just because I'm just not really a fan of those genres. And a lot of them are just not available too. But once he got into the genre, kind of I follow everything after that period. So even his westerns of the 70s and the adaptation of I'm sorry, the adaptation of White Fang and the sequel Challenge to White Fang. I think that he's a vastly underrated technical director, and he's also a mood and atmosphere guy, which is where I like rest as a film fan. You can have a great plot, but if I don't feel anything, then I just don't care about your movie. You can have great performances, but if you don't make me feel something I haven't felt before, you have no chance of being one of my new favorite films. And Fulci had this amazing ability to always have his films feel like something, even when the budgets dropped out as we got to the end of the 80s, even as the actors on board were clearly phoning it in, even as he was forced to reuse footage from earlier films because there's simply no money and no time, he still managed to make his films feel like something, which is something I think we've lost. And I think that's the big appeal for me of Lucio Fulci, is that he makes me feel. And sometimes those are not things you want to feel, and sometimes you're not entirely comfortable with what he makes you feel. But he always made you watch a film with an eye on how you are feeling about the movie and how you're perceiving it. So I will defend even his worst works much more than a lot of the contemporary directors who slid, such as your later Dario Argento or your later Tobe Hooper. Those directors that we once thought were sacred that fell on hard times because the industry moved to a place where they weren't going to put out great material. Fulci went through that too, but you could still tell the heart of the man behind the projects, even when you get to stuff like Door to Silence, which is a dull film. It's a Twilight Zone episode stretched out to 90 minutes, but you can watch it and still feel and still see that there was real passion for filmmaking. And again, if you go out to the theater and watch the most recent Fast and Furious spinoff, you're not going to feel anything of that like that. And that's the tragedy of where we are compared to the world that Fulci existed in and actually improved upon.
Well said. Very well said. Well, let's jump to Don't Torture a Duckling from 1972. Now, I had not seen this movie until literally just the other night. I watched it for the first time the other night. Stone or Christian, are you guys familiar with Don't Torture a Duckling?
Yeah, I watched it just the other day too.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on Duckling?
Dude, I gotta be honest, I really liked it. Here's my quick question, because I primed it like you, Piz. Was this a movie that had an English audio over it on the Blu-ray? Because when I was watching it on Prime, it was just giving me, I guess it was Italian. It was a foreign language, and there was no subtitles. I had to go to the settings and turn on English.
Now there are two versions of Don't Torture a Duckling on Amazon Prime. The one that you watched, and then there's one that's English dubbed.
I feel like I made the right decision though. Like I don't like subtitles. I am what you call the 99%, and I have no problem admitting that. I love bread and butter horror. I love my George Romero stuff and my John Carpenter stuff. That's what I love, and I'm proud of it. But I'm really trying to spread my wings. I really am. And I if there's anything I can't stand more than subtitles, it's fake dialogue over mouths. Besides like Toho Godzilla movies. So I can't stand it when I'm watching somebody talk and the audio's off from it, or if it's like a different language. So I actually really enjoyed watching it that way with subtitles, and I really liked it, man. I gotta say, it was, I don't like using the word slow burn because it's thrown out so much, but I was just waiting to see when the shoe was going to drop on this priest, because obviously I've had it spoiled to me, and even so. It was really interesting. I'm really starting to like foreign places in movies because I've seen so much of America in horror films by now. It's really nice for me to be able to just see this, because it was a gorgeous atmosphere that they had, really liked it. I really, really liked it. And some of the music cues were really, really good. I always have this preconceived notion. Okay, 1971. I don't know. Like music just didn't really start to form to the way I like it yet. Or acting. I don't. I have this. My wife gets on me all the time because I'll say this. I really don't love watching old movies. Not that I'm saying 71 is old, but like old black and white stuff. Because I tell my wife, I said, I just feel like I'm watching a play. The way they act, they're kind of over. And I always worry I'm gonna get that. I didn't get that at all from that movie. Not that I was expecting it, but it's my favorite Dario movie. To be quite honest with, not Dario, Fulci movie so far that I've seen. I really, really loved it. I really did.
Okay. Well, I think Christian brings up an interesting point about dubbing, and of course, the deeper you get into, Italian horror movies, giallos, you're going to get a lot of dubbing, and you're going to hear a lot of the same people's voices doing the dubbing. Do Lauren or Stone, do you guys have any issues with dubbing? I know sometimes it can add something to the movie, like an amusement factor to the movie, or even some, I don't know, maybe some unintentional humor to the film. But how do you guys feel about the dubbing in a lot of these Italian films?
I personally can deal with them just fine. I mean, I don't really have a preference either way. I mean, I grew up watching my fair share of silent and foreign films, and I don't mind reading movies, even though, I can understand why, like Kristen said, 99% they don't like to read movies, they want to watch them. And I've seen some movies that are really well dubbed. I mean, I think the most famous example is Das Boot, the German submarine thriller by Wolfgang Petersen. And I've seen some movies that are horribly dubbed, and yet I find them amusing. But at least I understand what they're supposed to be saying. Mm-hmm. And of course, a lot of stuff can get lost in the translations. I mean, for example, this week, I watched 7 Fulci movies, but they were all from 1959 to 1969, and I had to read the subtitles at a quick pace, and I knew that they weren't 100% accurate, but at the same time, I don't really have a preference either way. So there you go, Lauren. The ball's in your court.
So I don't really mean to burst everyone's bubble on this, but even if you watch it in Italian, you're watching a dubbed film if it came out of Italy before 1992. All Italian cinema was recorded without sound. It was filmed without sound, and in every case, they were dubbed afterwards. So even if you're watching the Italian, you're just watching Italian actors dub over themselves. But what I'd say about that is, it depends. For myself, I want the subtitles, but I completely understand that if it's going to put a wall between the viewer and the film, then I'd prefer that they actually just do whatever they need to enjoy the film. So often if I'm sharing a film with someone who I know is more of a casual film person who perhaps doesn't want to read a film, I have no problem turning on the dub for them if that's an option, it'll help them actually like the film. It's not a stumbling block for me. I like films to be as natural as possible, and I've watched so much cinema from around the world that it's just not even an issue for me. There is times when I watch American films that are in English and I have the American subtitles on, because there's times when certain films have certain rhythm to the dialogue that I just really enjoy actually taking a deeper look at. Glengarry Glen Ross is a great example. I will never watch that film without the subs on. So I guess my bottom line is whatever helps people watch and enjoy these films, they should do. For myself, it's going to be the original language with subtitles, but that I would never suggest that anyone try to do something that's going to hurt their enjoyment of the film. That's just stupid.
Okay. Yeah. Christian, Joe Bob Tarhill wants to know AEW or NXT?
Well, I'm wearing a damn AEW shirt.
Okay, there you go. He answered his question. He answered that question for you.
Yeah, not to be a jerk. Yes, I'm a Jericho fan, number one, so I follow Jericho. But no, I don't want to get into it. I like Chris Jericho. That's all I'll leave it at that. And real quick, Lauren, I realized that once you were saying it, when I got done with the movie, I did realize I was saying to myself, it did look weird with the mouse, but because I was reading subtitles more often than not, I just passed it off as well. I don't speak this language. For some reason, I justified it as maybe I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, but I realize that now.
It gets even worse if you watch a lot of like Sergio Martino films, because often in post-production they decided to change dialogue. So they just dub over lines that had nothing to do with the original performances whatsoever. Often, so you have the problem with international cinema is there's part of the diction that doesn't directly translate always.
Yeah.
So it gets further away from the original. You're not necessarily translating word for word. You're trying to get the idea or the sentiment. But there's been cases where the cultural touchstones that they're talking about are so foreign that they just change the meaning of all the dialogue. And you're getting completely different dialogue. Now, I'm not aware of any case in the Fulci catalog where that's the case. Again, I haven't seen everything. But there definitely is Italian films, vintage Italian films, where you might be watching a completely different movie at times than the original audience.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I was going to say that until I saw One on Top of the Other, which Mr. Fulci made in '69 in San Francisco, that was the first one I watched where it honestly did not sound like it was dubbed. I mean, looking at the actors' mouths, it looked like it was they were actually speaking real English, even though I'm probably wrong. But I mean, the dubbing on that one at least was superb. It was just excellent. I mean, very. If it was dubbed, it was dubbed almost perfectly. Yeah.
There was more money then. Even by the time we get to the movies that we love that we're going to talk about, the money had gone away by then. When you talk about it, the Italian film industry had its most money to work with and was most successful throughout Europe and even in America between the mid 60s and the very early 70s. There was maybe 8 years where there was just a ton of money so you could do things properly. But even when you get to the early 80s, advances in film technology had made the films look better, but the amount of money they had to work with was already fading. And by 1990, it was gone. The whole industry was pretty much washed up, and anything getting made was getting made with foreign investment. And there just, by the middle of the 90s, there just was not places to actually go to technically make a film properly in Italy. It's come back since digital's taken over. And you have someone like Ivan Zaccone, who is the real inheritor of the throne of people like Argento and Fulci, who are working in country now. But between the mid-90s and just probably 10 years ago, it was pretty dry. It was mostly television productions.
Anybody else thoughts on Don't Torture a Duckling? Stone, did you happen to check out Duckling? Okay.
I didn't make it that far, unfortunately. I have seen some of his later work, but like I said, I wish I just had more time. I would have watched every single film out there available, but I was only able to see a lot of his 60s stuff, which, real quick, just to get it out of the way, a lot of his 60s stuff isn't very good. I mean, like the first two movies he directed were musicals with Elk Summer in her very first movie. And of course, she went on to do Mario Bava stuff and everything. Really up until The Brute and the Beast, which the version I saw had the title of Massacre Now, or
Massacre Time.
Massacre Time, yes. There is a great sequence in the middle of that with whips that is so brutal, and yet, I mean, that was the first of his films that I really did truly enjoy. I mean, I highly recommend that one. It's an above average spaghetti western, and of course, One on Top of the Other. Brilliant use of San Francisco locations, and all of his movies from that time, even later, just great music scores. I've been constantly impressed by the music scores in all of these movies. But anyway, The Brute and the Beast and One on Top of the Other, those are the two 60s films that I highly recommend that he did.
So, it's interesting you mentioned that because actually Massacre Time's whipping sequence was later borrowed for Don't Torture a Duckling, where he restaged pretty much the same scene.
Really?
So, I mean, oh yeah, I mean, there's a whipping sequence in the film. Um, so my first experience with Don't Torture a Duckling came back from the old VHS bootlegging days, whereas you couldn't get these films. They weren't available. There was no internet. Then there certainly wasn't any DVD companies reissuing these in deluxe gatefold editions or anything. So you had to know someone who had a dub off of a foreign source. Maybe it was a Netherlands tape that someone dubbed over, and the quality was questionable because of the PAL to NTSC conversion, or maybe they had a Japanese laserdisc, in which case half the screen was taken up by 4 sets of subtitles. But my very first experience was on VHS in a very, very interlaced copy that was diagonally stretched and almost unwatchable. And if I'm correct, it only had audio in the right speaker, because it was from a mono source and it was all just shoved to one side. And still, the movie had this amazing power to me. There's sequences in that film that are sublimely beautiful. There's a sequence in the film where a young boy enters a very attractive woman's room. And if you actually look at the staging of that and how all the negative space is used in that, this is as good a work artistically as anyone ever produced in film. And for a guy who's best known for, of course, splinters meeting eyeballs and tarantulas eating lips, I think we have to look a little bit deeper and realize that this guy was capable of anything anyone put on top of him. Now, Don't Torture is interesting, too, because there's a strong anti-American culture and anti-Catholic Church message at the center of the film. And like all of Fulci's films, it's not a message film in that it wants you to come out with exactly what's in his head. It's more like a dark meditation.
Well, there was something really weird. The scene that you're talking about features a little boy,
Yes,
who enters a woman's apartment, and she is completely naked, and she has no issue
on a
being
chase.
on a chase, and she has no problem being completely naked in front of this little boy. And as a matter of fact, she's actually very
Flirtatious.
Seductive.
Very seductive, very inappropriate in front of this young boy.
Yeah.
And
So there's one of the core things about the movie is that because obviously we have the duck imagery, which Fulci had a thing with, right? That's why I brought out my duck clip here today. But he had this thing about American culture, which to him was best represented by Walt Disney. So we're gonna see a lot of Disney images in his films if you look closely. Even in some of the films where you don't normally associate, if you pay attention to set dressing, you'll be shocked. It reoccurs with stunning regularity. But and the other thing is he had a very big problem with the Catholic Church. If anyone knows his backstory, his wife went through a lot of problems and ultimately, unfortunately, committed suicide, and she was not allowed a proper service by the Catholic Church at that time because of the way she died. So he had an axe to grind in a pretty big way. And so the movie is interesting because it's his attack on the Catholic Church and the Americanization of European society at the same time. And so that scene you're talking about is a representation of very uncomfortable sexuality. Later in the film, we're going to have an insinuation about a priest who, of course, in the movie is about young boys being murdered. It's amazing how much Fulci was being honest about what he was seeing in the Catholic churches and his feelings. You fast forward to the late 90s and headlines are reading things that Fulci was insinuating in the 70s. And if anyone wants to talk about this guy just being a gore master or having nothing to say, I don't know what to tell you. This guy was a prophet. He was a film prophet.
I'd agree with that.
He famously also was, I don't know if he was not fond of women in general. He had a reputation for being very difficult with women on the set of his films. And I don't know, maybe I read into this woman's character in Don't Torture a Duckling in the way that she treated these young men is to say that, I mean, clearly he was not a fan of the Catholic Church. That was pretty obvious. But I was thinking, well, maybe he just wasn't a fan of women in general either, because I mean.
So I don't mean this to sound crazy, but many years ago for a fanzine, I interviewed Antonella Fulci, his daughter, and her whole take on this, and it was through broken English, so very broken English, but it was that he was not the person people keep saying, that there was a few incidents that kept getting drawn out, and that more is made of that than perhaps was really there. But I think he was a man of his time. And if we're being honest, I think that women were treated pretty badly in society in general, wherever you were, but especially in Italy. I mean, we're talking about the 60s here, right? So realistically, it's hard to tell with our modern sensibilities, and even the sensibilities, because I first heard these stories about him in the 80s, and those stories were all there. I don't think Lucio Fulci was necessarily a nice person. I don't think all artists have to be nice people.
Yeah, I was going to say that left brain, right brain kind of people.
Yeah, I mean, listen, people always want to go back and talk about, no one should read H.P. Lovecraft because he was a racist xenophobe. Okay, so was 85% of the rest of the country at the time. Fulci was a man of his time. I mean, he was an old school filmmaker. I don't think he tolerated anything happening on the set that was, tomfoolery, and it was the 60s. And these were young actresses in most cases in their early 20s. I think it's pretty easy to put the picture together. And I'm not saying everything he did was appropriate, but, I hear just as bad things about William Friedkin on the set with actresses. So I'm not sure if that's really as big an issue as it sometimes gets portrayed. That said, Fulci was under amazing pressure. These films were made cheaply and in no time. They had extraordinary pressure on him, and I think he was under a ton of stress. So if someone was wasting his time, I bet they got both barrels. I bet that happened every day of the week. And I bet the men didn't dare show that they weren't macho, so they didn't make a big deal of it. I think that's a lot of it.
Resurrection Review says that he's read that Fulci was an orthodox Marxist.
Pretend I don't know what that is.
I've never read that.
Okay.
I don't know.
I enjoy a couple of things that I liked about Don't Torture a Duckling. I thought that he did a really good job with his red herrings, because you have the crazy woman who has these like voodoo dolls that she's burying of the children. You have, of course, the woman who's running around naked in front of children and asking them if they would like to go to bed with her, which would not fly at all today. So I think he did a really good job as far as establishing these wild red herrings. And the beating that you were speaking about earlier, that's a pretty vicious beating in the film. And of course, I mean, you're talking about a movie that involves children being murdered. So I mean, it's just going to have an effect on people one way or another, just based on that alone. Not my favorite Fulci film. There's a lot to like about it. Christian mentioned a lot of the cinematography in the film looking very good, and I agree too. I love how a lot of the Italian directors, and not just Fulci, but of course Argento, Bava, they really, the locations were very much represented in their films.
Right.
There was very much a sense of place, and and I love seeing parts of Rome and Italy and different locations that they would shoot at, and just the architecture of the buildings and things like that. I find very interesting about those films. So that's just something that I like about Fulci films and Argento films and Bava films and so on and so forth. Any closing? Anything in closing about Don't Torture Duckling before we move on?
There's one thing I love really quick, the crude nature of some of the effects. First off, the ending when the priest is falling down. Of course, it has this fake look to it, but to me the whole movie felt like I don't want to say a dream state, but it seemed just not of my world. So because of that, like those kinds of looks, and I'm not trying to give it a pass because it's crude, because look, it's early 70s. I would sound so ridiculous to try to, say an effect from the early 70s didn't look great, but it matched the style of the film to me. And when that boy is in like that outside little, like big like trough thing, when the woman goes and sees the boy submerged under there, God, it sent the chill up my spine, man. It really did. So I gave a lot of credit to that guy for making that movie, because being raised Catholic in New Orleans, which that's all there is. I didn't even know what a Baptist was till I moved to North Louisiana, man. It hit close to home, man. I mean, I'm serious. It's just, that's the world. So it very well hit close to home. In the sense that, everything I could have done would have sent me to hell the way I was raised growing up. And I know this is not a religious debate, and I'll leave it at that. So I took the movie very personally, man. So I really struck a chord with me. I really like it.
Well, let's not get into religion, because Lauren is a devout Baptist, just Bible thumping, hellfire and brimstone.
No, listen, I have no problem with Baptist.
I dunk myself every day.
Well, you.
I want to leave no chances. But one last thing about religion and the movie, not about my religion, is that you'll notice that there's this cool reoccurring theme throughout the film. The whipping scene earlier is repeated when the priest self-flagellates, and of course his death at the end, actually the crude special effect you're talking about, has a certain level of self-abuse pictured inside of it. Again, Fulci was always interested in actual meaning and behind these grotesque images. It was not just to put vomit on the screen. And he often gets accused of that. I think there's a big difference between the nastiness of some of the American Deep South drive-in exploitation films and what Fulci was doing. And that's the reason that Fulci, basically since the advent of boutique video, has not been out of print. His key titles have not fallen away. Anchor Bay's first real big horror release was Zombie.
Yeah.
That is not a coincidence. These movies have more meaning and a lot more going on than people give credit for. And I've always been kind of annoyed, even though I like his work quite a lot, that Argento gets elevated to a level that Fulci does not. Because honestly, I think that Fulci was a lot more careful, especially when you had a little bit more time and money, than the typical Argento film. That's not to take anything away from Suspiria, Deep Red, or Cat of Nine Tails, but realistically, why is this one artist just considered an exploitation hack when his films are just steeped in meaning and imagery that actually has some kind of thematic basis? It's bizarre to me.
Well, and Christian mentioned something earlier about Fulci's, about Duckling having a kind of dreamlike quality. There's a dreamlike quality, in my opinion, that run through all of his films.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And as we get deeper into his catalog, I mean, when we get into like The Beyond and City of the Living Dead, I mean, those are just, to me, those are, very, very dreamlike, just sort of waking nightmare kind of films. Let's see, we had a really good suggestion in the chat just a moment ago from Borderline 11. He says, new segment on TSF, Lorne's live reading of the Old Testament. I think that would be just I would, yes.
As long as it can be annotated, I am down with that, like you wouldn't believe. I'm not even kidding.
So I mean, he loves the Lord. I mean, what can we say?
I want to skip right to Leviticus because that's my favorite. Because oh my God, no one will be religious after reading that thing.
All right, let's move on and let's jump into. No, I've not seen White Fang. I understand that's an interesting Fulci adaptation of the novel. Did any of you guys check out White Fang?
Oh, I wish I did.
Absolutely.
What's your thoughts on it?
So we can actually cover this and the sequel, Challenge to White Fang, in one.
Yes.
They're kids' films, kind of, sort of, maybe not. They're kids' films like those depressing 70s Disney kids' films were. There's not going to be a person who watches it that's not uncomfortable during scenes, that's not bowled over by how violent they are, and that is not ultimately weeping at the end of both of them. They're impressive in their own right. They're not films you're going to want to watch ever again because they're not happy experiences. But if you remember when Disney used to end every film, or sometimes start every film, with something that was just going to be upsetting to every child watching, that's basically the entire runtime of both those movies. Some beautiful photography, though.
Interesting.
Sounds good.
Very interesting. Well, let's see. What have we got next on the list? We've got The Four of the Apocalypse and Dracula in the Provinces. Both came out in 1975. Did any of you guys have a chance to check those out?
Four of the Apocalypse got a nice Anchor Bay DVD back in the day. It's the lesser of his westerns, definitely. It's not bad. It has some good character work, but it's not great by his standards. Dracula in the Provinces, I've never seen a copy with a dub or subtitles, so no, I have not.
What about The Psychic? I really wanted to check out The Psychic, but I just did not have time.
Has anyone else seen it? Because I can go on for like 2 hours on this movie.
I understand it's very Patrick-like, right?
Let her rip.
No.
Oh no, that's Enigma. I'm sorry, that's Enigma.
That's Enigma.
Yes.
So first off, I just want to say this starts the collaborations between Fulci and Dardano Sacchetti, which would be all of the classic gore gothics to come. But the film has no gore in it. It has a disturbing imagery of a dead body at the end. It is very Poe-like. This is the period where Fulci was transitioning between Giallo and the gore gothics, and right in the center, he got fixated on Edgar Allan Poe. In fact, he said that Poe was his real influence, that Lovecraft was never an influence, which is funny because you can't watch The Beyond or City of the Living Dead and not feel Lovecraft all over the place. But he claimed that Poe was the influence, and this is the film where you can really feel it. Between this and his adaptation of The Black Cat, they're very similar movies in that they kind of British feel to them rather than Italian. They're a little bit broad. They're let to be a little bit more character work than they need, but they both feature awesome final acts that everyone should check out. There's not a lot more to say on that for our audience, to be honest with you. But The Psychic is a film that has been actually remade several times, never under its original title and never being told that it's a remake. It's so successful that its plot has become cliche. In fact, I would say that The Eyes of Laura Mars owes a lot to The Psychic.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't want to ruin it because these are two movies that if you discuss the plot too much, you're going to ruin the movie. I don't mind on the more gothic gore stuff because the plot isn't what you're following, but these are also the heaviest plot-driven Fulci horror films.
Well, one thing that I'm noticing about Fulci's career is he's just throwing these movies out there. He's doing sometimes 2 movies a year. You're looking at, let's go back to
1964, 4 movies.
Yeah. And then we've got 2 movies in 66, 3 movies in 67, 2 in 69, 2 in 72. And then every year he's got a movie coming out. 2 in 75, 2 in 78, 2 in 80. So this guy's just throwing movies out there left and right. So let's move on from The Psychic. The Psychic is definitely on my list. He followed that up with Silver Saddle, which I'm assuming that is another Western, perhaps. Yes, it is another Western. But let's dive into 1979 Zombie, which may be Fulci's most well-known film. Would you say that is probably Fulci's most well-known film, Lauren?
Definitely. So Fulci was approached to do it after a few directors had come and gone on the project. The throughout Europe, the copyright law at the time did not allow you to copyright titles. That's true in America. However, in America, if it's obvious that you are trading on a pre-existing property, you are in violation of the copyright or in the trademark of that piece. No such provision in Italian law or throughout most of Europe. So basically, different producers decided they wanted to make a sequel to Dawn of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nothing legally preventing them from doing it. They couldn't use the title Zombie and release it. But Zombie 2 was completely fine because the number didn't necessarily had any legal connection. So the producers had wanted to make a straight up rip-off copy of Dawn of the Dead as a sequel. And when they brought Fulci on board, he wanted to go back to a much earlier era. He wanted to bring the zombies back to their voodoo traditions. He's a big Tournier fan. He wanted all that in. He fought with the producers, but ultimately the film that he did make got released grossed more in Italy than Dawn of the Dead, which started a rift between him and Argento that lasted until 1989 when they finally saw eye to eye. They both said a lot of stupid things too. Didn't help matters, but and they actually tried to work together at the end of Fulci's life. But the amazing thing is, it came to America, was released unrated. The television ads had a completely black screen and just sound from the film. And that's how it was released. It only played in grindhouses, a few drive-in theaters, but it did not get a wide release. And yet it was still, for a good 4 months, in the top 10 grossing films in America. On a fraction of the screens that the major U.S. productions had. So it earned its reputation as a horror classic the hard way. Mm. This movie should not have been popular the way it was. It should not have been successful. But you know what? It's a goddamn good film. And I think that's what it comes down to. You take all the stuff people talk about it all the time away. You take away the shark versus zombie. You take about the splinter in the eyeball. You take away the hallway brain munching sequence. You take all that away. It is still a really, really solid, beautifully filmed, great acted, wonderfully paced film with probably the best visual denouncement as a final sequence in film history. Mm-hmm. The zombies shambling across the Brooklyn Bridge at the end of the film. It's not setting up a sequel. It's not doing anything like that. It's suggesting that we've been watching this little movie about a few people on an island, and here's the big story that we didn't see.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful denouncement of what Fulci wanted to do and what Fulci thought was important. It's a phenomenal film. Mm-hmm. And I've taken too much time, so someone else talk.
Well, you want to go ahead, Stone? Go ahead, Stone. You got it.
Oh, no. Oh, okay. Sorry. Well, I was going to say, I mean, the first thing that jumped out at me when I was younger was, and I didn't know about the Dawn of the Dead connections or anything like that, but it's just that cover with the guy with the black eye, and the other eye has like worms and shit coming out, and his teeth are all fucked up. And when I finally saw the movie, that was the scene that I knew I would never, ever forget, when the guy literally lifted himself out of the dirt in front of this woman, and then he just goes on in and starts like chewing her up. I mean, that is the scene that got burned in my brain when I first saw it. I mean, the zombie versus shark thing was cool, which I'd love to know how they did that, by the way. But yeah, I mean, I really enjoy Zombie. I mean, I don't think it's, I mean, of course it doesn't have the satire of the Romero movies, but that's fine. I mean, Zombie, though, one of the best zombie movies I've ever seen, period. It's up there. It's up there in probably my top 3. And I need to rewatch it. It's been a while, but it's the one movie by Mr. Fulci that I've seen multiple times. And I plan on revisiting it multiple times. And even more amazing is that the star, Tisa Farrow, Mia Farrow's little sister. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she was the daughter of John Farrow and the classic actress Maureen O'Sullivan. And here she is doing this zombie movie. It's terrific. And also, great score by Fabio Frischi. If I mispronounce his name, I'm sorry, but Great score. Great score.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Anybody else?
I was definitely going to mention the score. I love that. Bum, 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 bum. Just, great pounding score for Zombie. Yes. I can remember there was a point in time where I started to get bored of, just what was happening in the horror world here in the U.S. And I started to look abroad for horror. And one of the very first movies that I kind of discovered was Zombie. And I heard so much about it, and I saw different clips of it, and just the look of the movie and the camera movements really kind of really drew me. It was the look of the film, it was the music, it was the way the camera was moving around. I remember the scene. It was the scene where like the zombies are moving. Like we're following like this zombie as he's walking down a street, and there's crabs crawling across the street, and it's just like, I don't know, there's something about it just mesmerizing to me. And I remember the first time I finally rented the film, I was watching it with a buddy, and we were eating we were eating pasta, spaghetti pasta in chili. In chili. And so we were eating spaghetti and chili and watching Lucio Fulci's Zombie. And
Olga Carlatos.
So I'm watching Zombie for the first time with my buddy, eating pasta, and I'm loving the movie. I don't know if I was aware of the splinter in the eye gag until I don't think I was aware of it. Even if I was aware of it, what I'd heard of it paled in comparison to when it actually happened. But I just imagine, jaw on the floor, spaghetti hanging out of mouth, and watching that woman get, the splinter through her eye and broken off and all that. Just like, oh my God. And you mentioned the zombie versus shark scene, which is definitely one of those moments like you just don't forget. If you've seen Zombie, that's a moment you will never forget watching. And that was a real shark, and that was a real guy, in the ocean wrestling a real tiger shark.
That was all real. Oh man.
Yeah.
They drugged the shark.
They
drugged
the shark.
Okay.
They drugged the shark, but he was really wrestling with the shark. And the best story from the set is that he's down there. They had an actor for the makeup, and then the actor got cold feet, so the wrangler had to go down there and do it. So there's a guy who had not practiced the scene at all. He's down there with a real shark. That's really unpredictable. And he looks off in the distance and notices that there's at least one other shark in the ocean at the time.
My goodness, that would be
Can sharks tell? Can sharks tell the difference between real blood and fake blood?
Well, it's all in the smell. It's all in the smell.
All I can say is,
it's all in the smell.
Good thing there was no Italian OSHA back then, huh?
Well, exactly, yeah. But I go back and forth with between Zombie and City of the Living Dead as to which one is my favorite favorite Fulci movie. As far as zombie movies are concerned, I would put Zombie right up there, man. I would put it. I wouldn't put it on the same level as Dawn of the Dead, but I would put it pretty close.
I would.
I would put it pretty close.
So here's the thing. Dawn of the Dead has enjoyed absolute respect and prosperity for so long that it's easy to not see that it's a long movie. It has pacing issues, and I like the movie a lot. I've owned the film since I was 17, but I'm sorry. I can drop in Zombie and watch it in a heartbeat at any point, and I can't say that about Dawn of the Dead. In fact, I'm more likely to watch the Dawn of the Dead remake than the original Dawn of the Dead at this point in my life. I've seen it a ton, and I think it's slow. It's my least favorite of the Dead films from Romero that I acknowledge.
Well, we all know Survival is the best Dead film, but we'll move on.
I don't acknowledge that.
I didn't even survive that.
No, Survival and Land and what's the other one? Diary don't exist.
Yeah, I don't like
Land. Land almost exists, but it doesn't quite exist.
Land was okay. It was okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. I thought.
I still think of it as just a trilogy. I think of it as night, dawn, and day.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all we need.
I agree with that. Yeah. I agree with that.
That's all we need.
I'm okay with that.
But yeah, Zombie was my intro to Lucio Fulci, and it was, yeah. I mean, I love the movie. It's one of those that I could pop in and watch just about any time. I think it's a beautiful film to look at. The music is fantastic. The cinematography is fantastic. The acting is good. The gore is, of course, off the charts. And the ending that, like, as Lauren mentioned, such a great capper. The zombies on the Brooklyn Bridge heading into New York. And I mean, my God.
We're so lucky that when they made Zombie 3, they picked up on that thread, right? And continued from that point.
Extremely lucky. Extremely lucky. Yes. And of course, and we could also get into the fact that the confusion that this movie has caused, because in some circles it is Zombie 2, and then they just kind of move on to Zombie 3, even though there kind of really is no Zombie 2, and just very, and the Zombie 3 and 4 and 5 kind of have nothing to do with zombie, other than there's kind of zombie-ish people in it. I don't know. It's crazy.
It's the
Zombie 5 dead birds, man.
It's the Final Fantasy of horror.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Did Mr. Fulci, did he work on Zombie 3? Did he start it and then left it or something?
Yeah, I think we'll get to that, because that's going to take some time.
Okay.
The movie itself is going to take some time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Christian, have you seen Zombie?
No, I haven't. Yes, I have. I'm kidding. I love it, man. And you know what it is, Piz? Is I get as much visual stimulation from that movie as, my Friday the 13th and stuff. So it's hard for me. And I don't know if maybe this is why the film has a big popularity in America. I don't see it as a foreign film. I just see it as a pure 80s horror film to me. So, and I don't know. I'm assuming that's the way a lot of people may see it. I love it. I think it's fantastic. And I do enjoy it. I do enjoy it on the superficial level. I guess I'd really have to rewatch it to really look at the story and the stuff that Lauren's saying. But I love it on the superficial level because it gives me everything and then some. I mean, I never thought I would ask for a zombie and a shark, but when I was watching that Blue Underground, man, which I know you got, it's gorgeous. Not only is it cool, but it's a gorgeous. Like, it looks so good. So I love it. It's Return of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, and Zombie. Those are like, I don't know what my 4 and 5 is, but those are my that's like my top 3 zombie movies. I really I'm not a massive Dawn of the Dead fan. I'm not. I love Zombie though. I just think it's fantastic. It makes me feel like Tom Savini. And I know he didn't do the film, right? But like, for some reason when I watch a movie, I get Tom Savini. I can't get, and I gotta go watch something after that. Piz, like, after I watch Zombie, I've got to go watch a Friday the 13th final chapter or a Burning or something, because that's what it, like, the emotion I get from the film. And I don't know if maybe that's why it did really good, or I say do really good, but that's why it's so popular in America, is because it doesn't feel maybe foreign to a lot of people. So
right. Well, it definitely has a lot of energy to it too. You mentioned that it definitely has a great amount of energy. But yeah, if any of you guys out there have not seen Lucio Fulci Zombie, definitely go see Lucio Fulci Zombie. You'll, like Lawrence or like Christian said, you never knew you needed a zombie versus shark fight in your life until you were actually given one, and then you're going to be just thankful for it from then on.
You're underselling it, Piz. You've never seen a topless woman attacked by a zombie and then a shark and then they fight sequence before, underwater the entire time.
Yeah. What would have been even better is winner take all. The winner would have ate. I mean, that's what, she should have waited, and whoever won, she should have let eat her,
Right.
So, I mean, But yes, Zombie is definitely, that's a must for Lucio Fulci. Let's move on to Contraband in 1980. Now, I have seen Contraband. I don't remember if it was a Blue Underground release or an Anchor Bay release that I got many, many years ago. And at this time, I knew of Fulci as a horror guy. I'd seen many of his movies at that point, and I was thinking, this looks like a gangster kind of action flick. And I remember watching it and really freaking liking it. I don't remember very much as far as specifics are concerned, but I remember liking the movie a lot. Any love for Contraband between you guys?
Haven't seen it.
Haven't seen it either.
So all anyone ever talks about this movie is the blowtorch sequence. It's a solid gangster film. It's a crime film. It features some really dark performances. It's kind of a programmer. I'm not going to say it's terribly original, but it's worth your time. And yes, the blowtorch scene is phenomenal.
So yes, I need to revisit it. I can't. I actually was looking for that DVD even before we were going to do this show because I wanted to rewatch it, but I couldn't find it. I don't know what I've done with it. It's been many years though. But let's move on to City of the Living Dead, which is, like I said, this is the one that I go back and forth on. I don't know if Living Dead is my favorite Fulci film or Zombie. And City of the Living Dead to me is we were talking about Fulci's sort of style and how he got into this very dreamlike kind of imagery. This to me is him, at least the Fulci films that I've seen, just the most dreamlike and nightmarish, and I just absolutely love this freaking movie. Anybody else loving City of the Living Dead, aka Gates of Hell? If you saw the film in the U.S. on VHS back in the day, you saw the Gates of Hell version, which had an awesome VHS artwork. Great VHS artwork. That is, however, an edited version of City of the Living Dead. Anyway.
Hashtag justice for Bob.
Pop.
So yeah, no, I mean, like, City of the Living Dead, it's beautiful. It's amazing. It's dreamlike. It feels like you woke up in Lovecraft Country, USA. I love the fact that the movie just doesn't make a big point of the fact that evil wins 10 minutes before the movie ends.
Yeah. And one thing that really kind of freaks me out about that movie is the fact that no matter where you go, no matter how well you hide, the evil will find you. And that to me is pure nightmare. That's the kind of stuff that is nightmare logic, when you cannot hide from whatever is chasing after you, whatever the evil is, there's no escaping it. And, you mentioned it. It's like waking up in, Lovecraft Town, and it's hell on earth, and there's no escape. And even if you try to escape, an arm will come out of the darkness and rip off the back of your head. Or the back of your skull, I'm sorry. So,
unless one of the fathers in the town decides to put a drill through your head.
Oh my God! When I first saw that sequence, again, I mean, my jaw was on the floor when I saw, the splinter in the eye thing from Zombie. I think this is an even better gag than that, and just shocking. Even when I watch that sequence now, I'm just like, whoa. That is really, it's brutal as hell, but it's just really cool.
So, weird question for people, but has everyone on the panel seen the movie, first off?
Good, yeah, that's a good question. And Jay the Stingray has joined us. Stingray, what's up, man?
He's styling, too.
What's going on, guys?
I'm glad that you spruced up for this Lucio Fulci show.
I did.
Yeah.
Showing
the man himself a little
Looking
respect.
good, man.
Yeah. Dig that very much, man. How's it going, man?
Good. I'm Team Fulci all the way.
Team Fulci all the way. We like that. That. Well, I'll ask you a couple of questions that I asked everybody at the beginning of the show. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was good. We can't really complain. We've got some illnesses in our family, so it really wasn't as much fun as usual. But I don't want to be a downer tonight. But yeah, it was fun.
Eddie, any Black Friday deals that you were able to take advantage of?
Absolutely nothing, man. I didn't buy anything. I didn't do any Cyber Monday. I didn't do anything this year. So absolutely nothing.
Seen any good movies lately? Good movies, bad movies, and different movies?
Yeah, I know. I know Lauren saw Knives Out, and he probably already talked about that, about how underwhelmed he was and plot holes and stuff. But I thought it was okay. I like Ryan Johnson. Um, a lot of good cinematography in there. And I saw 21 Bridges with Black Panther, and I enjoyed it for what it is. Like a corrupt police movie.
Okay.
You don't really see a lot of those anymore, so it's nice to support them when they come out.
Yeah. Well, we just wrapped up talking about Zombie, but I mean, Zombie is such a, it's one of those, if you're gonna if you're gonna get into Fulci, that would be that I would say that's the intro to Fulci. That's what I would recommend. What's
Shark fighting a zombie?
Exactly. What's your thoughts on Zombie before we really dive into?
I like Zombie a lot. I know it's a lot of people's favorite Fulci film. It's not mine, but when I first saw Zombie, I was a big fan of Dawn of the Dead and stuff, and I kind of laughed at it. Like, I didn't really appreciate it for what it was. It wasn't until later on when I got into Fulci and appreciated that style that I really some of it's kind of cheesy, bad acting and such, but it has a charm all its own.
Okay. Well, let's go back into City of the Living Dead. I think, Lauren, you were about to say something about City of the Living Dead.
Yeah, but Jay is so magnetic with his presence that he's erased my mind. I will say this about it. I will say that. This is what I was going to say. If everyone on the panel has seen it, or even most of you, I've always felt this film is like the template or the earlier version of Carpenter's The Fog in so many ways. They have so many similarities in mood and in structure. I mean, obviously Fulci goes much deeper into Gothic imagery than Carpenter ever did, but the entire setup of a town that's with this approaching like fantasy death invasion. It's just both films have a very, very quiet, supernatural, Lovecraftian nature to them. And I like this movie more, but I love The Fog. But it's interesting because I think you could remove all the gore from City of the Living Dead and still have a really spooky, great horror film. It wouldn't hurt the film to lose the gore. The mood and atmosphere is so great. The scene where the body in the coffin comes to life and bites the hand, but you don't actually see any of it happen, is a really disarming moment. It really feels like the Poe Lovecraft Machen kind of feel. I mean, Lovecraft wanted to do more than just rip the back of skulls out and tear some brains out. And it's funny because we've talked about the film this long and no one has mentioned vomiting up in your entire intestinal tract. And it's a show-stopping moment. Certainly, it's probably one of the first things we all knew of the film, but it's almost those scenes are almost incidental to what he really accomplished with the movie.
Well, the atmosphere and like every sequence that's shot outside, whether it's day or night, it's just so eerie, and there's just fog everywhere, and it's windy, and it looks kind of deserted, and the atmosphere of that film is just perfect. I think perfect. Let's see, Christian, have you seen City of the Living Dead?
Yes, I did. I did see City of the Living Dead, and this is just being really honest because I'm not gonna come on here and lie. I need to rewatch it because when I first saw it, I didn't love it, but I think after watching Don't Torture a Duckling, I kind of got the chip off my shoulder a little bit about audio and subtitles and the language being different. I don't know why. I feel like my back's up against the wall whenever I go up and watch these movies. So I didn't remember loving it. But then again, there were moments in the movie where I was like, let me grab my phone. And then you hear somebody yelling from underground. And then this guy's trying to walk away. And then that scene really freaked me out. It really freaked me out. It's not my favorite. We're going to get to one of my favorites up in here in a few years. But I'd be a fool to say that this is not a really incredibly good film. I'm gonna rewatch it, but yeah, that's just that I need to rewatch it basically. But I did like it. There were moments where I was really freaked out when he gets ready to, dig up the coffin and stuff. That really freaked me out.
Well,
So.
and shout out to the late great Christopher George.
Oh yeah.
I just I love anything. Just about everything I've seen Christopher George in, I've loved. So I mean,
Grizzly.
Grizzly
Yeah.
Pieces. One of the American
Charles
Ninja
with
movies.
Claws.
Of course, this. I mean, yeah, just
But Piz, watching Zombie and then getting ready to watch that, I don't think worked in my favor. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I was expecting the same thing.
maybe.
Like, I really thought I was going to literally just get Zombie again.
No,
this movie is definitely darker. It's
Yes.
definitely darker, and its atmosphere is different. So,
Yeah.
That's just me being honest. That I probably went into it with a certain level of, I don't know, preconceived notions, which I typically do, because I'm an idiot. But
Yeah.
I need to rewatch it because I've been thinking about this movie for a couple of days now, and I can't get that scene out of my head. So that's probably going to be on the agenda this weekend to revisit City of the Living Dead.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I remember the score of that film being very good also, and Alan Scott in the chat mentions the sound work in City of the Living Dead is incredible. Screams and shrieks, grunts, animal sounds, creaking, all that. Just it's just a tapestry of it's a nightmare tapestry. So
Same composer from Zombie, Fabio Frisci.
Yep. There's actually backmasked lion roars in the movie. It's insane what they went through to get the mood and feeling, but that they weren't worried about whether it made sense for there to be those animal calls. They cared what you'd feel, and I think for the horror genre, that's the right move.
Yeah, you talk about the atmosphere. That's a great one to watch around the Halloween season, I think.
oh, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Well, go ahead and take the stage thing, Ray.
Yeah, that's one I like quite a bit. I was going to say, I think it's funny how all these films are set in America, but with Italian actors and stuff. That's funny.
Well, they're all set in like the Northeast too, like in I think maybe I don't know. Fulci and Argento both had a liking for witches. So
And eyes.
and eyes, yes. Fulci had a thing about eyes.
It's in like every movie, right? Like some close up of an eye or something going into an eye.
Something there's a number. Yeah, he must have had a thing about eye trauma. I don't know.
It's usually an attractive Italian lady with blue or green eyes. I noticed, which I'm fine with.
Stone, did you have a opportunity to see City of the Living Dead?
I've seen City of the Living Dead. I saw it in the 90s, but I do remember enjoying it. So it's definitely one I want to revisit. But yeah, I do. I know that is one of the few of his before tonight that I definitely saw. And I remember liking it. I just don't remember anything about it, unfortunately. I do remember the cover art. I do remember the cover art very vividly, though.
Did anybody rent the Gates of Hell version? How chopped up is that? How chopped up is it, Lauren?
Depends, because there was 2 releases on VHS. There was a relatively intact version, and there was a not intact at all. But actually, the version most people rented wasn't really cut. Fulci's actually been fairly lucky if you compare him, because Zombie was there's no hacked up version of Zombie out there. The Beyond is the only one of his films that really suffered from heavy censorship in America. He was one of those few directors that got over here and got unrated releases. And the only reason The Beyond didn't was because they really marketed the thing as like a film like The Shining, which is insane, but that's on the original American poster. That's what they did. But no, Gates of Hell isn't bad. I think I might be missing seconds. House by the Cemetery has scenes that are in the wrong order on the American release.
Interesting.
That's a bigger issue.
The Trash Stash mentions that eyes are superstitious in Italian culture.
Nice to know.
Interesting.
That's true. There's also a substitutionary thing that is not exclusive to Fulci, whereas when you showcase eyes in a movie, you're kind of playing with the fact that the audience is watching your movie and you're reflecting back at them. Whether that was Fulci's intent or not, I don't know. I've never read anything, but it's kind of a convention in European cinema.
Well, we're getting into a really interesting part of Fulci's career. It's odd that Contraband is thrown in there, because you've got Zombie, Contraband, City of the Living Dead, The Black Cat, The Beyond, House by the Cemetery, New York Ripper, just like this one, awesome movie after the other. And Contraband, which I recall it being very good. It's just odd that one's thrown in there. Totally different genre. But any closing thoughts on City of the Living Dead before we move on?
I think I like the title Gates of Hell better.
That was the title I know I saw it under with the VHS. It was Gates of Hell.
That's a badass title, man.
The title, the artwork on the VHS box, also very. I mean, it just jumped right off the shelf at you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, great artwork, great title. Yeah. Well, let's jump into The Black Cat. I was unable to check out The Black Cat for the purposes of this retrospective. So who has seen The Black Cat here?
Lauren.
Stingray, have you seen The Black Cat? Okay. Give us your thoughts on The Black Cat, Stingray.
I like it. It's a little slow for my taste. It's been quite a while since I saw it, but I don't really remember liking it too much. What do you think, Lauren?
I think it's if you're going in expecting a Fulci movie as we think of Fulci, you're probably going to be disappointed. It's a film that has some great scenes, and it has a great ending, but it feels very loose in its structure, which is something very uncommon for Fulci, especially at this period. I think it's one of the better acted films of the entire Fulci canon, which is the irony there. And the boathouse scene, I think, is pretty phenomenal. But honestly, if you're only in it for the gore, this is one you need to skip. Interestingly, many years later, Fulci was almost involved in the Two Evil Eyes project when it was just called Evil Eyes, and it's interesting to see that Argento has his version of The Black Cat and Fulci has his. And Argento's is better, I would say. But I would also say that Argento didn't have to stretch it out to feature length. So who knows?
You know what's interesting about the Two Evil Eyes is when Argento never mentioned Lucio Fulci. Even in like one of the commentaries I listened to, I don't think Fulci was mentioned at all. They mentioned Stephen King. They mentioned John Carpenter, and that both of them passed, and so that it just kind of fell to Argento and Romero.
Fulci was so ill he was not able to even really make films during the period. But so how far it got, not far probably, but the original concept was 3 stories, and it was going to be it was all supposed to be a lineage in the Night of the Living Dead thing, the Dawn of the Dead thing, I guess more. So Romero, Argento, Fulci. And ultimately it didn't happen. And I think the final film suffers from it not having 3 stories and only having 2, because I think that especially Romero's film, piece from it could be tightened up by a good 9 to 10 minutes and be a stronger piece. But it's one of those wish it was, could have been, but it was just too late in Fulci's life. His complications from diabetes were too serious, and medical technology was where it was at. Basically, they were controlling his pain. That's what it comes down to. And he was known to be depressive and going off his medication when he got frustrated, intentionally. And unfortunately, we don't get that. He didn't even get to finish up his career properly with the film he was working on when he died. So
it's too bad. Any other thoughts on The Black Cat before we move on?
I'd very much like to see it. Unfortunately, the only black cat I've seen is the classic Karloff Lugosi movie from
I love that movie.
1934. Now, let me ask you, Lauren, just real quick: is Fulci's Black Cat, is that any more faithful to Poe? 34 movie is.
Yeah, if you can imagine it set in the early 80s and stretched that short story just stretched as far as it could go before it breaks. There's
Okay.
not a lot more plot. There's a lot more subplot. If you've watched all the classic era Fulci and you want to see what else he was doing, it's a worthwhile watch. It's not one I reach for. If I was going to reach for this film or the Psychic, I reach for the Psychic. I think that's the better of the two. They have a very similar feel, except the Psychic is a little bit uses its music and its cinematography a little more effectively to make a film that feels tighter. It's not a bad film by any stretch. It's just not going to be what most people expect from Fulci.
Okay, well, let's move on to The Beyond. And this is another one, when people think of Fulci, I think, really, I think there's 3, maybe 4 movies that pop up, and definitely The Beyond is one of those films. Who wants to get us started on The Beyond?
That's one of the only films I've seen quite a few of the filming locations on.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool.
The bridge is pretty iconic. It's like in and out of New Orleans over the whatever that
Pontchartrain.
is. It Pontchartrain, something like that.
Oh,
Yep.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the film?
At one time it was my favorite Fulci film. I liked it quite a bit. I'd only seen a few of his, and then I got into some more of the obscure stuff, but it's a great one. I think it's got some of the best gore of any of his films.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. Yeah, it's well,
and that I think that one may also be scored by
Fabio.
Yeah, another Fabio.
Freezy.
Yeah, quite a few of his, I think, were done by him.
Anybody else thoughts on The Beyond? Christian, were you able to see The Beyond?
No, that's on my to-do list. That and House by the Cemetery. I'm just waiting for the 4K to come out in next month. So I don't want to watch it until I see the 4K.
Christian, you're all the way across the country, but you have a week and a half to see both films. I'm coming down there. We're gonna take care of you. Right after I'm done with Stone. Okay? Hey, wait, Jay, you're closer. You can take care of this for me, right?
I don't know, man. I think that's stuff that kind of benefits a little bit for some grain and.
Well, that's why I like Blue Underground, because it's got a lot of grain.
They keep the grain.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about, but if there's a movie I haven't seen and it's got like a nice restoration that's coming out, and I know I want to see it, I'm just gonna hold out till I get the copy of it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to just own it to say I own it. Not that I'm saying Piss does that at all, but I'm saying I want to wait and see this gorgeous restoration of it.
I heard the Blu-ray looks really good. I've just got the DVD copy, but I know it was some problem with like the tone. It was like a sepia tone at one point with the beginning sequence.
So that's the intended release version.
Okay.
So you got to be a bit careful. I can tell you why that is, but I have the Arrow UK release of The Beyond, which is pretty much the template for all releases since, and it's gorgeous. I'm good. I mean, I love the movie. I think I'm to my comfort level. I don't need to upgrade it anymore. It's a stunning looking film as is. I can't imagine needing more.
That was in reference to House by the Cemetery, though. And when I say 4K, I just mean it's a scan, but it's a Blu-ray. But
yeah,
The Beyond is on my. It's been in my cart for weeks, and it always gets bumped out for a USA blood and guts film, Lauren, which I'm sure you're not happy about, but it always gets back.
You were seriously considering buying the Amityville later sequels over The Beyond.
I consider
I'm heading to Louisiana no matter what now. I'm bringing a baseball bat. Jay, you're meeting me there. We're gonna take care of it.
I like some of those sequels though.
Come on, Piz, help me out. You a USA boy, Piz. I'm a Kentucky boy, Piz. Get in there.
Where was the Beyond filmed again?
Louisiana.
Oh, I definitely need to see it.
Oh, dude, when you watch it, you'll see stuff. You're like, oh man, I've been there. Well,
I was raised in Miro, which is right outside of New Orleans. So I don't know. Pontchartrain. I've pissed off that bridge for God's sake. So.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah, you need to watch it. I mean, it's a great movie anyway, but
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, Emily and Dickie on the bridge is, I think, as iconic as any image in film. It's certainly in horror films, but it's just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. I mean, the Beyond. Listen, I don't want to oversell it because some of the special effects have aged, and you can tell. But you know what? The movie casts such a spell, you don't care. It gets you on its side. It's almost like you're in this strange dream state. It almost like the film has hypnotized you. And by the time you get to the zombies in the final act, you're just in a different place. Just in a different place.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an amazing film.
Yeah, Fulci just throws a little bit of everything at you with the movie, because you've got like demons, you've got zombies, you've got tarantulas, you've got evil little girls that get their faces blown off. You've got he just threw everything at you with this movie. And
he started the whole white eyes thing that has been like a horror trope since. Like his family should get a residual check from every movie that does that.
Well,
probably awfully painful back then too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Contacts, I can imagine.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned the the special effects have aged, and yeah, they have, and probably with like a 4K release or something, it's going to show even more. But I think that's part of the charm from a lot of his movies, like the pacing and the quick cuts and stuff. It just that's his style, and I just think it's part of the charm of his movies.
Mm-hmm. Now, I kind of zoned out for a second there. Is the Beyond getting a new Blu-ray release soon?
No,
you were talking about House by the Cemetery.
I was saying I haven't seen that or House by the Cemetery yet, and I haven't watched House because it's on Shudder. But as soon as I was going to that 4K got announced, the 4K scan Blu-ray, excuse me, and I told myself, Christian, you're gonna wait and enjoy that gorgeous scan of it. Don't Shudder it. Just wait. So that's what I was getting at.
I wouldn't worry about all that, man.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna see it regardless. I've gone 27 years, Jay, so I can wait. I can wait a couple more months. So.
Well, but, I mean, the Beyond. I mean, these are like checklist films,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I first saw the Beyond on a one of those Diamond DVD releases. They were the budget DVD releases before the Walmart $5 bin or $3 bin, which is how it is sometimes. It was like really poor picture quality, but it was the movie, and it was everything I could have wanted out of a Fulci movie. Again, it's like he just throws everything at you in this movie. It's got that nightmarish, atmosphere. It's got a great score. It's got everything you could want from a Fulci movie in a Fulci movie. So
I was looking. This is 7 Doors of Death was what it was originally released under in the U.S.
Yeah, that was what the blue whatever DVD release was called, was 7 Doors of Death.
That's a cool name too.
Yeah, that was butchered. Now that if you want to talk about a film that was cut, it was cut to hell because it was the Fulci film that was released to suburban theaters. And it suffers. It is nearly unwatchable. Now, interestingly, because there's been some problems with the rights to the film, you can find public domain prints on DVD under the 7 Doors of Death title, and they're all uncut now. They're all using uncut prints. They're not using the cut that was known under that title.
I have the same Arrow release that Lauren was mentioning earlier, and it's a really nice release.
It is.
Is it Region B locked? Because I'm having trouble getting my hands on the Beyond Blu-ray that's a USA title. It was out of print last time I checked.
I'd have to run back there and grab it. It probably is Region B locked, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's B.
Okay.
If that's on Shudder, I'll watch it this weekend.
I will quiz you.
Let's give a shout out to Cole is Gay. He's in the chat. He says, hope you all are doing well. Have a great show and wish you all the best. Thank you, Cole is Gay. Thank you very much.
What's up, Cole is Gay? We haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
Is this a trick?
No, this is one of our longest, viewer that's been with us for a long, long time.
He's so dedicated, he made a screen name for the show.
He did, yes. He did. Any closing thoughts on The Beyond before we move on?
Oh, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Jay.
I was just going to say, it's been a while since I've seen it. I wish I could talk more about it because I do like it quite a bit. I screwed up, man. I meant to do more homework before this show because I love Fulci so much, but I was only able to watch like 4 films in the past week, unfortunately. But that's my fault. Great film. Watch it. You haven't seen it.
I was going to say I need to see it too, but I just read here, as of 2019, the 7 Doors alternate score prints were discovered and are in the process of restoration. 7 Doors trailer, TV spots, interview with Aquarius owner Terry Levine, explaining the quote-unquote Americanization process was included as special features instead. As of 2018, a cut version of the film available for streaming via Amazon Video under the 7 Doors of Death title runs approximately 84 minutes. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Cool. Also, I need to give a shout out to our old buddy Jerpin, who's in the chat. He's another longtime viewer of the Sausage Factory. Hope you're doing well, Jerpin. Let's move on to The House by the Cemetery. Now, Lauren, I know you think very, very highly of House by the Cemetery, so I will save you for a little bit later. Stingray, your thoughts on House by the Cemetery?
Yeah, this is another great one. One of his classic films. I'm trying to see. It's been a while since I've seen this one too. I apologize. I know I liked it quite a bit, but I can't remember a whole lot about it. Sorry.
It's okay. That's okay. Christian, have you seen House by the Cemetery?
Piz, come on.
Okay, well, give us your thoughts.
We just had a discussion about how I'm waiting to see it.
Oh, right. Yeah. What am I? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Don't worry, Piz. He'll see it by next week. Or he'll never see anything again.
Me too.
You've not seen it yet, either, Stone?
Unfortunately not. Let Lauren do it.
Well, I'll give my thoughts before we let Lauren take the floor.
Okay.
This is another one. The blue DVDs, those cheap DVDs back in the day, which is about all I could afford at Sam Goody. But those, I got to tell you, those DVDs introduced me to to at least 2 Fulci movies. It introduced me to Pieces. It introduced me to, 3 Fulci movies. One of them being House by the Cemetery. Pieces, freaking Silent Night, Bloody Night, just a lot of good stuff. So I think when I think of those diamond, whatever they were, DVD releases, I just think, I don't know, I have very fond memories of those releases. But House by the Cemetery, I've seen it 3 times, and I even watched it last night, as a matter of fact, again, because this is a movie that I think to myself, I should like this movie, but I just kind of, I don't know. I can't get into it. I cannot get into House by the Cemetery. To me, it almost feels like Fulci coming off of movies like City of the Living Dead and The Beyond that were kind of epic feeling movies. To me, House by the Cemetery just feels like a really pedestrian slasher movie. I think it looks good. The little boy and his dub dialogue is pretty amusing.
Oh man. Yeah, I was gonna say this is one of the only times that I prefer the dub over the subtitle version because they're so funny. Like I'm usually laughing through these movies most of the time because it's so poorly done.
But yeah, I don't know. I just, for some reason, it's one of those movies that I keep making myself watch because I'm like, I should like this movie more than I do. And there's another Fulci movie that we'll get to momentarily that I feel about the same way about. But I don't know. I I can't get into House by the Cemetery. So Lauren, go ahead. You've got the floor. I know you're a big fan of House by the Cemetery. Is House by the Cemetery your favorite Fulci?
It is.
Okay.
It is not by a narrow margin either. I love this movie. I think that of all of Fulci's work, it's the most compact. It has the least amount of fat. It moves incredibly fast. I think that it's one of those rare films that you turn on and you feel like you maybe watch for 20 minutes, a half hour, and then credits are rolling. I think it's lyrical. I think it feels like a prose poem. I think it succeeds wildly in being a really aggressively, physically frightening film. I mean, the threat to the characters feels very real. There's certain sequences where it's not the gore, it's the violence. The triple throat stabbing that leads to decapitation isn't shocking because of the blood. It's shocking because of the suddenness and the viciousness, and it doesn't feel staged. It feels like an actual act of violence. But how that violence is used in the story is just amazing to me. It's a story about deconstructing an American family. It's about two families, actually, both becoming deconstructed. Dr. Freudstein's family and the family that moves into the house a generation later. There's great subtext. There's really very, very good performances outside of course, young Bob, which, that dubbing. Getting a 30-year-old woman to dub a young boy's voice was a great move. But blame that on the American distributor, not on Fulci. But we haven't mentioned her name at this point, but Catriona McCall, Fulci veteran, was in City of the Living Dead, was in The Beyond, is here too. As much as I love her in The Beyond, I think this is a better performance. I think she's as primal a final girl performance, if you want to call it that, as anyone gets. I mean, people talk about Amy Steele getting down and dirty and fighting really grimly against the odds. Katrina McCall tries to crawl out a family crypt through the basement of her house. It's just incredibly gothic. It's beautiful. It is the best shot film in his catalog, and that's saying something because Fulci was not visually a slouch. I think it is.
How do you interpret the ending? Do you interpret the ending that Bob was killed and now he's in this, like, I don't know, afterlife with the little girl? I mean, how do you interpret that ending?
So this would take too much time, but let's just say that we think throughout the entire film that we are watching a film about a family that moves into the house a generation later, and we are not. Bob is a member of Freudstein's family. That is the ending of the film. The mother, Freudstein's wife, actually makes it explicit at the end of the film. When the family that we think are Bob's family are killed, his dream about this family ends, and he's brought back to the real world where he's just a member of the Freudstein family, heading towards an apocalypse where Dad's going to wipe out the whole family. There's plenty of hints throughout the movie, and people tend to have this knee-jerk reaction thinking I'm wrong when they just hear me say it. But if you go back and watch the film, it's all there. And then at the end of the film, they actually just say it. We're watching the entire film through Bob's eyes, and this is a child's fantasy about a regular family in the house, as opposed to what he's actually going through. Sorry to depress everyone with that, right?
Interesting. I didn't
rewatch the film.
I've never read into it like that.
This is just like Delamore, the Cemetery Man. The people who just see it as a surface plot and don't realize what the movie's about are always pissed at me when I just talk about the movie. But House by the Cemetery is a really smart narrative, and it gets buried under the exploitative grindhouse veneer. People underestimate it. It's a really, really solid movie.
How do you one thing that kind of I was actually watching the movie with my girlfriend last night, as a matter of fact, and the scene where the nanny or the maid or whatever her name is mopping up the blood of the realtor, and like nobody ever, she doesn't, like, what's all this blood doing in the floor? She just cleans it up,
She asks us if they want coffee.
Yeah, the mother walks in and she like completely doesn't even pay attention to what's going on. She's just like, hey, you know, whatever. And like it's not ever brought up. And
It's because we're not watching a regular narrative. We're seeing this from the point of view of Bob. He's experiencing these horrific things, and no one else seems to be seeing them or acknowledging them. It's from his point of view, which is why we see him having visions of the young girl who supposedly lived in the house, which maybe is a sister or maybe a future family member in the house. It might be generational that way. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of hints through the film that we're watching through Bob's imagination. We're watching the story through how a child would perceive it. There's also the very last thing that comes up on screen is an O. Henry quote. And if you read it, it is again telling you that children are the monsters. This story is the story told by a young boy heading towards a horrific fate. And also that actress whose name is on the tip of my tongue, and that plays the maid, I can't think what her character's called. She's a Fulci regular too. She tends to die in everything he ever directed. It's pretty amazing. I would say take a fresh look at the film and take away all your thoughts of it being kind of this grindhouse film, and think of it in terms of being Fulci's art house horror film, and you'll do yourself a lot of favors. There's a lot of clues in the movie that were not in a hard reality, but including Fulci's cameo in the film. Take a deep look at that scene, and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Anybody else thoughts on House by the Cemetery? No. Okay. Let's see. Stingray, are you a House by the Cemetery fan?
Yes. I said before I like it quite a bit, but I just don't remember very much about it. I remember the kid being annoying. I do remember that much.
The haircut.
That haircut, yeah, that haircut
Well,
is
it's just
something.
that dub too, man. That doesn't help.
The dub, yeah. Well, let's move on to the New York Ripper from 1982, and this is another one that I feel like I should like this movie more than I do. And it's not just the duck voice from the killer, which is a little off-putting. It's a sleazy movie, but it's not a fun sleazy movie. It's a sleazy movie that kind of makes me feel uncomfortable. But that's just me. I don't know. Anyway, let's dive into New York Ripper. Thoughts on New York Ripper, anybody?
I'll go because I'll keep it quick.
Go for it.
Exactly what you said, Piz, is why I love it. It makes me uncomfortable. I think that's awesome. Too many movies are just like run of the mill. You know what to expect. I thought the opening of the New York Ripper, when I was watching it, I was like, oh my God, okay, let me put my seatbelt on, because I have a feeling this is gonna make 10 to Midnight look like a Sesame Street episode, and I loved it. I thought the New York Ripper kicked my ass. I thought it was a badass movie, and I don't know, I loved it. So I love the fact that I got uncomfortable from it. So I can't praise it enough. I loved it. Doc, that's all I gotta say.
Gritty, grimy. It's almost like it gives you the same feeling that like Maniac does. You know,
Right.
It's just sleazy.
Right. Yep.
And I'm not always in the mood for films like that, but when I am, it's nice to be able to, see stuff like this, because it really makes you feel like gross, like you need to take a shower. But yeah, I like this one quite a bit. I love the poster art on it as well.
Yes, that fork, that Blue Underground that we got. It's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The sequence in which the lady is seduced by the guy's foot.
I wouldn't call that seduction. I think it's a lot more aggressive than that.
I'm trying to think of a safe word. That was the safe word. Is being seduced by the gentleman's foot. Just no bueno for me on that one. I
would call it toe rape.
She was you can't call it. She was a willing participant.
Well, she's submissive, yeah, but it's toe rape. Definitely toe rape. So what I like about New York what I like about New York Ripper, and it's not my favorite Fulci film. I don't find myself watching it a lot, but what I really like about the film is that Fulci did not like slasher films. He was really not he liked giallos, and he liked the idea of doing something with them, which is ironic that people consider House by the Cemetery a slasher film because it's more a haunted house movie, honestly. But here, he was given money to make a slasher film, and he just said, "Okay, but I'm not going to make it pretty, and I'm not going to make it nice, and it's not going to be. If this is going to be like how horrible people really are, and if you had a slasher, he would really be truly nuts, and you wouldn't think of him as kind of like a anti-hero. He would be just a scumbag." And it is a brutal takedown of the slasher film in the form of an ugly, grotesque slasher film. I love it for all those things. I love it for saying, yo, you want to be titillated in a horror movie? You want sex to equal death? Okay, here's what it looks like. Here's a nipple being sliced in half by a razor blade.
Yeah.
In extreme close-up. And you said that, well, no, but isn't that what Friday the 13th is? Friday the 13th has always kind of like downplayed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fun to watch the death, right? It's fun to watch the sexually promiscuous girls get what's coming to them, right? And I'm simplifying. I don't believe that about the Fridays, but that's the interpretation. Fulci was saying, "Oh no, you want that? Okay, we're going to give it to you." Now, ironically, people sit there and say, "Oh, he was a misogynist because he put it on screen." When actually, I think kind of the opposite's true. His willingness to do it was saying, maybe we should take this a little bit more serious. Maybe it shouldn't be fun to watch people get killed in horrific ways with weapons, sharp weapons. And what I really love about the film too is that the final act isn't scary or gross. It's sad. When you find out why the killer's doing what he's doing, man, that's pretty brutal. That's brutal on a whole different feeling level. And again, Fulci makes me feel. If you watch Don't Go in the Basement, you don't feel. You watch this film, you might not like what you're feeling. In fact, it's probably something wrong with you if you like it too much. But man, you'll feel something. And for the people who make fun of the quacking voice, yeah, I get it. But when you find out why he's doing it, man.
I think that's what most people like remember, about the film is the quacking voice. So, do you think, Piz, if it didn't have that in there, would you have liked it more?
No, I think it's sick. I think it's demeaning. I think it's demoralizing. I think it's garbage, and I think it should be canceled. And I don't like it. So it doesn't exist to me.
Harsh.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, let me say, and unfortunately, after I finish, I'm going to have to get some sleep because I got to be in Manhattan at 5:30 in the morning tomorrow. But let me say, I watched New York Ripper literally right before the podcast. Literally. And like I said, going back to the sleaze, that's what I kind of rebelled in it, because it was filmed in that time in the early 1980s when New York 42nd Street was just all sleaze, the sticky floors, the grindhouse era. Oh, I love that stuff. The live sex shows where you could, you can buy a ticket to go see A Midsummer Night's Wet Dream before Rudy Giuliani destroyed it. I mean, and just got rid of it all. I mean, some people don't miss it and, is happy that those days are gone. But look, I wish I was there. I wish I was there to experience all that, when Deep Throat had come out, all that stuff. I wish I had experienced that stuff. And when I was watching this movie, okay, this woman is watching a live sex show, masturbating, and recording it in a little tape recorder. And it's just, I didn't know whether to laugh or I didn't know exactly what to feel, except for the fact I was fascinated by it. And it's like in the next scene, you see the police detective trying to catch this killer, and there's a naked woman in bed. It's a prostitute. And it's like literally in 3 scenes in a row, he had a naked woman. And it's like, wow, he's going all the way with this, with the nudity, with the gore, the sleaze. He's going to the nth degree with all this. I enjoyed New York Ripper, quote unquote, enjoyed it. Even though it's, I can understand Piz's reaction because, fortunately, even I can imagine a lot of horror fans being turned off by it. It's uncomfortable to watch, but I think uncomfortable in a effective way, sort of like Maniac, which Jay had brought up earlier also. I do think it's worth watching at least once. I don't think I would buy it, but at the same time, look, great use of locations. I mean, I liked the camera work. I liked so many things about it, and I just read that actually Fulci made this film as a Hitchcock homage. This was his film dedicated to Hitchcock. Now just swallow that for a moment. Seriously, just swallow that for a moment. And finally, last but not least, bringing up Fulci's supposed misogyny. I just read right here, Zora Karova, who played Eva in the film, spoke very positively about working with Fulci and stated that it took a while for Fulci to warm up to her. When asked what she thought of the film, she stated, she didn't like the New York Ripper at all. So, take that for whatever it's worth. Here again, I don't need to buy the Blu-ray, but I'm glad I saw it, and it's probably not going to go down as one of my favorite Fulci movies, but at the same time, I think every horror fan should see it once, and whether they're disturbed by it for good. Oh, one last thing. I'm sorry. The duck noises. I did find that genuinely disturbing.
Me too.
If I was there in that situation, whether I was with the police or with the woman strapped to the bed getting her nipple sliced up and everything, I would be seriously disturbed. Like on the level of disturbed like in Human Centipede, when they're getting the lecture on how he's going to connect all these three bodies together. That to me is just some of the most disturbing things I've seen in movies. Nightmare on Elm Street, movies like that, as much as I respect them, nothing for me. They don't make me cringe like that. I like movies like that make me, cringe and just be like, ugh. Every once in a while. But look, it's not going to be my favorite Fulci, certainly after I watch The Beyond and some of his other movies. Look, see it once. If you forget about it, that's fine. But I do recommend it at least a one-time viewing.
Buy the 4K Blu-ray of it.
Okay. Okay.
And then watch it once.
But on that note, from Brooklyn, New York, I must retire for the evening. You gentlemen and everybody in the chat have a very, very good night.
We're about to talk about Manhattan Baby, man. You can't leave before Manhattan Baby.
I wanted to watch Manhattan Baby before the podcast too, and I ran out of time. I couldn't get to it. So, okay. Well, you know what? I'll stick around and listen to the discussion. Then I'll have to go. But I just want to let you all know I have to get out of here in a few minutes.
Okay. Our buddy the obsoletionist Gibbs is in the chat, and he says, "I got a little uncomfortable listening to Stone describe how New York used to be." So, I know people are talking about Rudy Giuliani going to jail over something. I don't know what he's supposed to be going to jail over now, but he should be imprisoned for cleaning up New York City. That's where that's.
And let me just say, it was only yesterday that somebody on my Twitter feed quoted Rudy Giuliani saying, we should just, we need to stick our president whole process. And I retweeted it and said, in the words of John Vernon from Savage Streets, go fucking iceberg, Rudy.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's. Anybody else thoughts on New York Ripper before we move on?
It's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I think it kind of speaks to what degenerates we are that we like this movie so much, huh?
Well, yeah, I think you all are degenerates, to be honest.
It's a good one, man.
I
Jeez.
stand by it. I'll watch it with my grandma tomorrow. I don't give a shit.
Look, he's about to get her titty cut off. Watch.
Look, Granny,
less
she's
about
getting seduced with that guy's foot.
It's less about the gore and the sleaze than it is about the period detail. Just something about that period in New York history that I find it fascinating. I wish I was there.
And a great performance by the dog. You know, can't overlook that.
Oh yeah, that dog was terrific.
One of the better dog performances I've seen. So.
And I love the dialogue between the woman and the guy in the car. It's like you have the brains of a chicken, yeah, and you're an asshole, you know. Good stuff.
Well, let's move on to Manhattan Baby, which is another one I really wanted to watch. I've not seen before, but I just did not. I ran out of time. Thoughts on Manhattan Baby? Anyone?
Honestly, I think this is one you can probably skip.
Okay.
I had never seen it before. I watched it for the first time. It's just really not a whole lot there. There's some decent gore, but aside from that, it's really not that great. Just my personal opinion.
I think the first 6 minutes are great, and the stuffed pelican attack is awesome.
Oh yeah.
And besides those 2 points, it is definitely on the slide. You could tell there was no money. But I mean, again, it's hard because if you're going to go to Shudder and dial up something made 2 weeks ago and shot on video in America that thinks it's really cool, this is probably a better choice. But so it's hard for me to say don't watch it, but I would say prioritize the titles that we've already discussed and a few that we are still to discuss before this one. It does have its high points, and again, the bird attack is pretty phenomenal. But yeah, it is what it is. I like it. I just, don't watch it often.
Okay. Anybody familiar with Conquest, which looks like some kind of sword and sorcery fantasy movie, or I don't even know how to pronounce this other film, 2072. Anybody familiar with either of those films?
Yeah.
Okay.
Has anyone watched them? So Conquest is a sword and sandals type of fantasy film like Krull, or Krull would be a good comparison. It is mostly shrouded in smoke to the point where you can't see many key sequences. I'm assuming as a cost-cutting way to save money, but it's if you're a sucker for that stuff, you're gonna like it. I don't think Fulci's head was entirely in it. It has some interesting visuals. The villain sorceress is a pretty memorable figure in the film. As far as 2072, it is pretty much the Running Man before the Running Man. That might sound a little bit better than it is, but it's fun. It has some great acting in it. Fred Williamson is in it. Of the two, I'd go with that one.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Let's talk about Murder Rock. Thoughts on Murder Rock? Anybody?
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
I feel like this is going to become kind of repetitive. So yeah, I mean, long needles, not a lot of gore. Has a lot of dance sequences. Very, very 80s. The color scheme on every dancer is very, very 80s. It's fun. I mean, if you like things like Cutting Class, which I know you do love, Piz, you should probably watch it.
Okay.
I put it in that realm. It is incredibly 80s, though. I mean, like, it's so 80s, you probably will get cavities from watching it.
Awesome.
But it's a lesser Fulci film, but I think the use of music, even though it's bad music, is really interesting in the movie, and it's well shot. It's just so 80s. And I just want to ask Jerpen, which mask?
The one with Cher in it.
I've never seen the one with Cher in it.
He said something with Ted hair, with the Ted hair that looks sick. I'm not sure what that means.
Red hair. He
red hair. Okay.
Oh, so that is a clown from the feature film Hellfest. That is the actual prop. It's in it's one of many clowns in the clown portion of the park. Unfortunately, the scene he's in is pretty dark, so you don't get a clear shot of him. But that's the actual prop from the film. Everything behind me on that whole table is from Hellfest.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
One thing I wanted to mention about Fulci is the good thing about it, if you've never really watched any of his stuff, like it's pretty widely available. Like it's a ton of it on Prime. I think even YouTube has a lot of it.
YouTube has a lot of Fulci movies.
So that's one good thing. It's not hard to track down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, now from Murder Rock to really the end of his career, I've only seen 2 movies. So I'm not going to have a whole lot to say. I've not seen Devil's Honey. Anybody seen Devil's Honey?
Absolutely.
Okay. I know it got a Severin Films Blu-ray release not long ago, but I did not pick it up.
It is a sexy movie with saxophones.
I'm in.
Yeah, no, it's pretty much his take on the Fatal Attraction thing. It's not really a horror film at all. It's like a pseudo-sexual thriller. And there's a lot of Vaseline shots, so it's what you think it is.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, if you want a Cinemax film that's directed by Fulci, that's what you're going to get. But yes, a woman does pretty much make love to a saxophone.
Wow. Okay.
Now I'm in.
I'm in.
That's all I
in.
needed to hear.
I'm in. We're all in.
Y'all woke Stone up. Y'all woke Stone up.
I would.
Some great poster art on that too, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would much rather see a woman seduced by a saxophone than by a random dude's foot. So I think I'd like this one.
What year is this movie, and how old is he by this point?
1986.
Is he old? He's a grandpa by this point, right?
Yeah.
Well, he passed away in 96.
96.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was born in what, 26, 20 something?
24? Was that what I remember?
Let's see. When was he born? He was born in 1927. He died March 13th, 1996, at the age of 68.
Oh, he didn't die very old.
No.
That sucks, man.
And he did a Fangoria Weekend of Horrors convention just before dying, and I didn't go in because there was a snowstorm.
Oh. I actually heard from people who went to this convention, and they were like, they stole it. Like people were fighting over a can of Coke that he was drinking. He'd finished a can of Coke, and they were like fighting over it. I think maybe somebody said they were fighting over cigarettes in an ashtray that he had smoked, just to get something of Fulci from this convention.
I don't know that I would go that far.
I remember thinking clearly as I watched, because this was a blizzard. This was a big snowstorm. I remember looking out my window going, Fulci will be back. And he wasn't back. And I was just as much a fan then as I am today. It's my biggest regret for just not getting out there. But yeah, no, he didn't realize that he had an American fan base or that anyone cared about the movies at all. So he'd been invited to conventions in America. He just never came. He thought it would be a waste of time. And he was treated like absolute royalty. And so at the very, very end of his life, and I'm talking weeks to live, he finally knew that he made a difference and he had an audience. So sometimes there's a happy ending, just not in a lot of his films.
Interesting. Let's talk. Well,
Can you autograph this duck for me, Mr. I'm sure he autographed the duck. I'm sure he autographed the duck.
Oh, I'm sure he had. Yeah.
Can I score some of those fingernail clippings?
Let's talk about Enigma. This is another one I wanted to watch. I just ran out of time. Anybody other than Lauren seen Enigma?
Yeah, I watched it last night.
Huh? What were your thoughts?
It's not bad. It's not bad at all. It's one of the more lower budget ones, I think, filmed in like Yugoslavia or somewhere, and it has some unique kills in it. It's basically a revenge type film where they play a prank on this girl and she gets hit by a car in the process, and she's in a coma and she basically somehow possesses another girl and then starts killing off the people who did the prank to begin with. But it's really interesting. There's one girl that gets killed with snails somehow, and it shows quite a bit of the snail crawling around on her nipple. And so if you're into that, I mean, check that out.
Hell yeah.
I'm not gonna say I didn't. You know, I'm glad I watched it. So, but yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Cool. Lauren, I know you've seen it. You think quite highly of it.
For this period that we're entering of Fulci, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a way not to. It's big and it's gothic and it's dumb in all the right ways. It feels like a Carrie/Patrick ripoff, but he elevates it with this. The movie is so watchable. It's pretty. And you know what? There is some pretty decent performances. The dubbing here again is kind of rough in places. Not in the same way it is with Bob in House by the Cemetery, but sometimes it feels very stagey because of the dub dialogue. But it's pretty solid, actually. If my real comparison to this would be, it's sort of like a lower budgeted European take on something like Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. In that there's a revenge aspect and there's a very, very pliable reality. We all know that slugs can't kill you, no matter what. However,
they crawl around your nipples, maybe. I don't know.
I don't see it, but it's there because it's this image. And again, Fulci was not concerned about what something was. He cared about what it made you feel. And if you're not grossed out and weirdly intrigued by that image, I don't know what to tell you. I would say this about the film, though. This is an important note. We talked about censorship of Fulci films earlier. This film actually wasn't available for a long time on VHS. It was one of those titles that just slipped through the cracks. It was like, I think, 89 before this thing really. It was even later than that. It was a while before this got a proper release, and when it did, it was overcropped to the point where it was pretty unwatchable. So this film, even though it wasn't cut, it was certainly presented in a way that made a lot of people not have a very good impression of it. I know that there was people who were bringing over the German Laserdisc for years because it was the only good way to watch it. Thankfully, we're in a better period now.
Yeah, I'll have to keep Enigma on my to-watch list because that sounds pretty good.
Good night, gentlemen.
All right. Good night, Stone. Have a good one, buddy.
Hey,
See you next Friday.
Stone.
Yes.
I'll see you soon.
Oh no, I will watch Hellfest before you see me. Trust me.
That sounds like a threat.
Well, I better get a message.
You will.
Enjoy
have a good
the
night.
city tomorrow.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good
You
night.
too, buddy. Let's move on and talk about Zombie 3, which I have seen Zombie 3. And not a worthy follow-up to Fulci's Zombie. And apparently what happened is Fulci shot the film. The film was deemed too short, or I forget the exact circumstances. And then Bruno Mattei came in to film an additional 20 minutes or so. I forget how much, but it's just not good. It's just not good. It's just not a good movie. Anybody else seen Zombie 3?
I concur with what you said.
It's not. I don't know. It's just bad. It's just bad.
Yeah. So I mean, it's even worse than that, Pez, because it was a Philippines shoot. Fulci did it because he needed money to pay medical bills. Went down to the Philippines sick. He got so sick he had to leave the production, so he didn't even finish a proper cut of the film. Both Bruno Mattei and Claudio Fragacio came in to finish the film.
Right.
So
that's right.
So this thing has the Hell of the Living Dead, Troll 2, Help. That was the assist.
Yes.
And it's a mess. It looks like Hell of the Living Dead. In fact, I sometimes have trouble keeping the two films straight in my mind because they're so similar. There's certain sequences where you can see the Fulci flair, but most of it you can't. People say as much as 40 minutes are his. I hope that's not true, because if so, that means a lot of shit that was way below his standards got into the film that he filmed. But he was extraordinarily sick. That can't be underscored. And he literally did the film because he didn't know how to pay for his medication. He would never have made a sequel, which is ironic because technically Zombie 2 is a sequel, but he never had an interest in it.
Yeah.
It's a mess. He did apparently, in interviews, say how he was influenced by the original Evil Dead. So maybe that's where he wanted to go with it. You can kind of see that, I guess, if you squint real hard and stand on your head and turn off all the lights in the room. But it's so unfortunate that every time you buy it on video, in bigger letters in the title, it says a film by Lucio Fulci, because it's really nothing of the sort. Maybe it would have been had history been very different, but no.
And it's even disappointing. You've got the Bruno Mattei Claudio Fragasso connection, so you would expect maybe some good cheese and some silliness, but it's not even got that. It's just
I kind of like the zombie with the machete at the gas station, and I think that probably is Fulci. Tonally, it's weird, but outside that sequence, I can't recommend the film at all.
It's possibly the best Bruno Mattei film.
Well, sure.
That's not saying much, though. That's not saying much. Okay, where are we here? We are up to... Go ahead, Stingray.
I was going to say, I just realized that he was a producer on The Curse, the Will Wheaton film.
He shot the special effects sequences.
Oh, really? Cool.
So yeah, and actually, interestingly, the apple with the maggots in it, he made that prop.
So after Zombie 3, he directed Touch of Death, which went straight to video, apparently, and then he directed 3 straight TV movies. Anybody? Go ahead.
All 4 of them were made for television. Touch of Death was refused a certificate to air on Italian television, so it was released to video instead. They were all part of a production block. House Clocks is the best of the bunch. It's a kids movie with gore scenes.
Yeah.
There's no other way to put it. Sweet House of Horror is weird. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's kind of a mystery film with horror overtones. Sodomania is a weird kind of heavy metal sex and horror film. It doesn't really come together. All these were made very cheap. Very, very cheap. Now, Touch of Death is the best known of the bunch because so much of it was used for Cat in the Brain. And it's definitely the gory one, which is why it was refused the certificate to air on Italian television. Lots of chainsaws. But House of Clocks, I think, is the one that if people are going to search out, Anchor Bay did release a DVD issue of it. It's a decent print of it, as television movies of the time period are. Yeah, I can't say it's essential for you to see any of them. If you're a hardcore Fulci guy like I am, you'll end up there. But curiosity is at best.
Well, let's talk about Cat in the Brain, which I saw for the first time the other night. This is a Lucio Fulci movie starring Lucio Fulci as Lucio Fulci. And need I say more? And I have to say, I don't think Fulci was necessarily a bad actor, to be honest. But yeah, this is an odd one. I almost looked at it almost as if Fulci as an indictment of horror movies. But then there's a character in the film I think it's Fulci himself who says that, horror movies don't inspire real horror, or violence in movies doesn't inspire real violence. I enjoyed the movie. I liked it. I thought it was definitely interesting and just really strange. But yeah, has anybody else seen Cat in the Brain? I know you have, Lauren, Christian, Jay, Cat in the Brain?
No, I haven't.
What about you, Stingray? Stingray's MIA, I believe.
Where did you watch it, Piz? Did you stream it or?
It's on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Well, go ahead, Lauren. You've got the Cat in the Brain. Is that a poster? Was it the record?
This is Laserdisc, my friend. This is the Box Office Spectaculars Laserdisc of Cat in the Brain. So also known as Nightmare Concert. This was an interesting project because Fulci regained the rights to a lot of his work, and especially the television work. So he had this footage, and he had a market for it. So he wrote the film around recycling the footage, and he decided to do a film about the nature of horror films. And there's no other way to put it. This is the first great meta horror film. This is exactly what Wes Craven did, both first with New Nightmare, and then afterwards with the Scream series on a much lighter touch. But it's a fascinating look at how Fulci viewed his horror catalog, and it says a lot that he never set out to be a horror director. It took a long time into his career before he became a horror director. So when he realized that his legacy, as it were, was going to be these movies, it's an indictment not really of horror movies, it's an indictment of himself. It's this kind of dark self-portrait. And it's funny, you don't really get a lot of artists getting the opportunity to do that, to criticize themselves. And I think it's a fascinating, almost autobiographical via fantasy work. Now, it didn't have much of a budget. It looks cheap. Some of the footage from the other films looks even worse than the stuff he shot for this. But it has a weird sort of tapestry. It feels like a quilt, like a homemade quilt of a movie to tell his own very personal story. He'd do this again without outside footage at the very end of his career, where he made a statement about himself. And it's only a few years later, but Cat in the Brain is kind of Fulci's final statement about horror. He'd go on to make more movies, obviously, but this was it. This was him saying, this is what it is. This is what I set out to do. This is what I'm going to be remembered as opposed to what I wanted to be. And there's a certain sadness to the whole movie. But by the same rate, it's kind of lovely to see a director be able to really make a statement to his fans and have his fans actually show up, maybe not for the right reasons. They might have just wanted to see the gore scenes, but he got to talk to them. So I think it's a great personal film. I think in its own way, it's a great Fulci movie. As a film, it's hard to defend in some ways because it's not great technically compared to what's gone before. It's not great from a writing standpoint, but from an idea and just a statement point of view, I love it.
Yeah, it's my favorite Fulci film for that reason you just said, and plus he's acting in it too, so it's cool. It's really meta. I love how that term's thrown around these days, but yeah, that's a great film.
It was meta before meta was cool.
But no one will commit to it like he did, though. That's the thing. Like, look at Scream. Just saying what the rules are makes you meta, but no, Fulci was saying, okay, this is what it is.
Yeah, all blemishes, mistakes, all everything, good and bad.
Absolutely.
None of the other guys were going to say, "Oh man, that Hills Have Eyes 2 was pretty shitty, huh?"
But yeah, definitely very, very interesting film. I just thought it was very interesting. Him directing a film about himself, playing himself. And being very critical of himself and of his work. And I thought being very, very critical of horror in general. But yeah, I would absolutely recommend it. Let's see. Let's go on to Demonia, which another one I've not seen. Lauren highly recommended it to me.
Really? I didn't think it was very good at all.
Well, go ahead. Tell us about it, Lauren. Why you like it so much?
Well, it's very much a film of its period, but it's the last time a Fulci movie actually looked like a feature. After this, the technical qualities become problematic because there was just no money There's none. I don't know. I think that it has a look to it. It definitely, again, it kind of that like 80s hair metal feel and look to it and cultural standby. But yeah. Listen, maybe I have rose-colored glasses with Fulci, period. But I think this is well worth watching. And you're not going to love it. It's going to be no one's favorite, but it's not like anything else in his catalog in a lot of ways.
How did you describe it to me before the show? Like would you say it was a neon infused something or the other? What did you say?
I don't remember the exact words, but it's like a neon infused gothic head trip of, I don't know. It's a hard movie to describe, and you can't talk plot because that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and rewatch it. It's one I blind bought when I was going through my Italian demon phase, and there's a lot of turds in that punch bowl. But yeah, I'll have to go rewatch it.
I think you temper your expectations. You're going to come out with a visually really interesting film that was made in desperate times as the Italian film industry was collapsing under his feet. But again, I will take that over what we got now going on most of the time. So,
Sure, yeah, totally.
I have not seen Hansel and Gretel, Voices from Beyond, or Door to Silence, which was Fulci's final film that he wrote and directed. However, he used a pseudonym for different pseudonyms for the writer and for the director of the film. So I'm not sure what's up with that. But Lauren, have you seen any of those films?
I've not seen Hansel and Gretel. It is partially a recut of those previously mentioned TV projects, is my understanding. I have not seen it though. And some people claim he didn't direct it to begin with, so it's kind of in a murky area. But no, I have not. Voices from Beyond is a gothic soap opera with a really cool, ingenious. It's a murder mystery, but it's about a patriarch who dies and figuring out which family member killed him. Hey, does that sound like something that came out last week? But it has a much cleverer way that the murder was actually committed, by the way, than Knives Out. But I'd say it's not completely successful because the budget really hurts it. It's really cheap looking. The performances are not particularly good. The good stuff about it is it probably will remind people of soap operas, and if a soap opera took a really dark turn.
That's probably why I didn't care for it very much.
Does that seem right to Jay?
Yeah, it's one I didn't really care for, so I didn't commit very much to memory. So
that low key sounds good to me. I'm not even gonna lie. I was raised having to watch As the World Turns every day with my mom, so I kind of have a soft spot for that stuff. To be honest with you,
I might be overselling it to you. It's not very good. There's stuff about it that's cool, and again, the murder, how the murder is committed, is very, very cool. But I don't want to say it because then no one has a reason to watch it. But it is what it is. I have it. I pull it out every reel once in a while, but Door to Silence.
Door to Silence, yes. What about Door to Silence?
So Door to Silence is a film about Fulci facing his own mortality. It's about a guy who's driving cross country who notices a car following in his rearview mirror. And maybe it's a hearse. And maybe it's just death trying to catch up to him. And I wish I could tell you a lot happens in the film, but a lot doesn't happen in the film. It is a very slow, meticulous meditation on his own mortality. And while it's a boring film, and that's an accurate way to describe it, it's also a profoundly sad movie. I think you should go into it, if you're going to go into it, divorcing yourself from expectations of Fulci, because it's almost like, I don't know, Lynch's straight story, but much more personal and even more leisurely. Again, it's a profoundly sad movie. I always talk about how horror movies get a bad rap because we tend to talk about them being scary or being gross or being tense. We don't talk about the other emotions that horror films can be and sometimes are best at, and sorrow is one of them. And when a horror movie is profoundly sad, with its gothic imagery, it can be a very moving experience. And I do think that's the case here. But I also still think that if I oversell this to the audience and they walk in, I'm going to get a million messages telling me,
Right.
how dare you? This thing is so slow. It's so boring. Nothing happens. I agree with all of that. So I think you have to be in the right mindset. But, you know, he directed 54 feature films. That's not counting the television stuff. I think it's okay to let this man tell the final story he wanted to. And unfortunately, the producer didn't let him. He didn't have final cut. Now, his illness had taken him out of the production at a few points. Nothing in the film was not shot by Fulci, but it raised the cost of the production beyond what the production had. So the producer basically took it away from him, and the final film is not his final cut. I think the producer just strung together everything that was shot.
Was that Joe D'Amato?
I need to search that. I don't have it memorized. I'm sorry.
Well, that's what Wikipedia says.
It's very possible, and it wouldn't surprise me. But it's a sad end to a career, but it's interesting that he chose for it to be a sad end to the career. He didn't make a big jubilant film as his final piece, and he knew it was his final piece. He was so ill, he knew this was it. Ironically, he didn't stop there because, you know, he entered into conversations about making a film that would have been produced by Dario Argento called The Wax Mask, which eventually was made without Fulci. And his ideas are apparently in the film at some point, but it's nothing like what it would have been had he had another year to live.
I think Fulci has a writing credit on Wax Mask.
It's not a great film. But the sad reality is we look at a guy who started his film career making rock and roll movies and spy comedies, who made sex comedies, he made political comedies. Then he turned to giallos and westerns, and that led him to psychedelic horror films, to gore gothics, right through the video age. He got to make films that, while reflecting what was going on in America, were very personal despite that. You know, and even when he was clearly a gun for hire, making, you know, action sci-fi films or making, you know, bad, barely watchable sword and sandal type movies, he still brought something every single time. And even when he was phoning it in, and he did phone it in at times, he was too good for the resulting film not to be something that really should be admired today, because his films feel like they're constructed by human hands. You can see what he was doing, why he was doing it. You can feel his passion even when he was dispassionate. I don't see that with what's going on today in film. There was no corporation behind Fulci. There was no concerns outside the broadest strokes about what a film should be. No one looked and said, let's just make Dawn of the Dead again, and handed it to Lucio Fulci. You ended up with Zombie. And I think that's the big legacy, is that this man gave a shit. And I'm not saying he was the last to give a shit, because there's been great directors since. But it's impossible not to look back at what this man did. From a time when color film was not available in Italy, to making a film by scratching together enough money and resources to make a film about driving cross country and looking back at your own life. It's an incredible achievement. And honestly, we should all take kind of solace in the fact that there was a time in history of film when this was even possible. And yeah, this man did it by having characters regurgitate their digestional tracts, and he did it through splinters in the eyes and sharks and zombies fighting. But there's a personal vision that comes through even in his darkest, worst hours. And then you compare that with the Bye Bye Man, or you compare that with a Star Wars sequel, and you see what we've lost. It's not just a man, it's a whole idea.
Well said. Very passionately said as well.
Wax Mask is on Shudder also, if anyone wants to watch that.
Be careful about it. It's not very good.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you one thing. I am so sick and tired of hearing people talk crap about Bye Bye Man. If you walk into that film, okay, I can't even go on. No more crap about Bye Bye Man, all right?
Bye Bye Man is my go-to like dog film, and I've never seen it, by the way.
Listen, in 15 years, people will look back at Bye Bye Man, and they will say this is a modern cinematic classic.
It sounds like a movie. It's a movie made by like a 5-year-old because Piz, I'm assuming you've seen it like me.
I've seen it. I've seen it a lot.
All right, Piz. If there is this guy that can attack you when he comes into your mind, and I go up to you and I say, Piz, for God's sakes, don't say it, don't think it. What's the first damn thing you're thinking of? It's so ass backwards. The whole movie's premise is so ass backwards. There's only one thing you can think of when I say, Piz, don't say it, don't think it, don't say it, don't think it.
Well, I mean, clearly it was just over your head, Christian. I mean, there's so many deep themes going on in Bye Bye Man. I mean, really, at its core, it's a film about.
Here we go.
Reaganomics, the failure of Reaganomics. The pseudo New Deal definitely is represented in there as well. I can't go. I have seen Bye Bye Man, and it is truly. Lauren, you should watch it. You should really watch it just once. It is truly, truly, tremendously bad.
If someone out there wants to send me a copy, I'd be happy to put it on my list and get to it in a decade.
You can't. The fact that this film got a theatrical release, the fact that the film was released, is mind blowing. It's so bad. It's just so bad.
It is. I can't believe it. From the name to the story. I remember when I saw the trailer, I was like, "This is a joke, right?" Like, no, that's not a real movie. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it.
Unbelievably bad. Unbelievably bad. Well, there you guys go. Go ahead, Stingray. What?
That door slowly opening behind you, Christian, was pretty creepy.
Oh, my house is haunted.
Awesome.
So there you guys go.
A ghost. Why can't I get a ghost?
Ghosts aren't real. All right.
Well,
I know. It makes me very sad.
What you want is a demon. That's where it's at.
That's what it is.
Man,
that's what it is.
That's even better. Someone forget Bye Bye Man. Someone send me a demon, please.
Well, that's what it is. It's the Bye Bye Man because I'm thinking about him right now.
Guys, send Lauren a Dybbuk box and let him open that fucker up.
All you need, Lauren, is a Ouija board. Just buy you a Ouija board at Walmart.
We have 24 of them in this house. We have them as decorations everywhere.
Well, you're not using them correctly.
I'm not using them at all.
I'm with you, Lauren. I got a Ouija pillow, dog.
I'm telling you. So it's like. The problem is, I've been thinking Bye Bye Man, and I've been saying Candyman into mirrors and Bloody Mary, and nothing happens.
You don't believe. You gotta believe, man.
Well, that is a problem.
You gotta believe in it.
All right, so
Bye Bye Man commentary next week.
Oh Jesus, no. So there you guys go. The career of Lucio Fulci. Hope you guys learned something. Maybe you guys can look at Lucio Fulci's career through a different prism. Maybe this episode will make you want to revisit some of Lucio Fulci's films. But yeah, definitely. There's a couple on my list I'm still going to get around to watching, and I'm going to add Murder Rock to that list because that sounds right up my alley. So, but yeah. So let's see what's going on out in the chat tonight. Let's see who's still with us. Pierce Nightshade is still with us. Borderline 11 is still here. Barbecue Network. Keeping Angela Baker says, I'm afraid ghosts are real. Okay.
Send me one.
Yeah. Send one.
I want one.
Send one to Lauren.
I want a ghost so bad.
The Trash Stash is here. What's up, man? Hope you're doing well. Who else we got in the chat? DJ Donnelly is here. Hello, DJ. Hope you're doing well. Alan Scott still with us. Jerpin still with us. So let's talk about next week's episode. Next week's episode of The Sausage Factory will be on Friday the 13th. instead of on Thursday the 12th. And on Friday the 13th, we are going to do a live commentary for the original Friday the 13th with special guest Peter Bracke, author of the book Crystal Lake Memories. Yes, we did do a Friday the 13th marathon Friday the 13th live commentary, several years ago. But we did not have Peter with us at that point, so we're going to make things right and do a Friday the 13th commentary with the great Peter Bracke next week, next Friday, the 13th. Mark your calendars and be here. So let's see what's going on in Stingray Spotlight this week.
Oh, fuck.
Grumpy old man is what it sounds like.
Stingray Spotlight is. I don't know, man. Go watch Cat in the Brain.
There you go. Stingray Spotlight this week.
Sorry.
Go watch Cat in the Brain.
It's been a rough week.
Go watch Cat in the Brain. That's Stingray Spotlight this week. Let's see what's drawn Lorne's scorn this week.
You didn't get enough of that already tonight. Listen, I find that a lot of people are always talking about how the genre is producing crap, and it does. It produces a lot of crap. I'll be the first to say I don't like where it is at the moment. But at the same rate, in the last 2 years, I've had 2 different films from different countries end up on my top 10 of all time list. It's out there, guys. So before you get upset, before you start screaming that the genre is just not producing the good material, you got to dig a little bit deeper, a little bit harder. You got to go outside your comfort level. My man Christian doesn't like subtitles, but I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to get him to watch some films with subtitles because he's missing out on great stuff. Maybe you're a person who doesn't like films that don't have the cultural references that you're acclimated to. Guess what? You're missing out on great stuff. The genre is still vibrant, but you have to do the work now. Now, the thing is, when we look at someone like Lucio Fulci, a lot of people have dismissed him for years and years and years. But as time goes on, even as those special effects that we talk about looking worse and worse, the films are looking better and better. And that is because there was a time when working hard on a film, giving a crap, mattered. So what I'm asking all of you to do is go out there, whatever movie it is that you love, that you think is what the genre should be, watch it again. If you own it, awesome, put it on again tonight. If you don't, go out and buy it. Even better, maybe if you own it, buy it again. Because at some point, we need to start supporting the good stuff and let the bad stuff go away. We need the genre to be healthy, so we want to support more than we don't support. But you know what? When it comes down to the choice of, do I go drive an extra 30 minutes to go see that film in limited release versus going to see Bye Bye Man real close to home? Take the drive. When maybe start supporting those older films on Shudder that you go past every time because something new just hit the service. Because you know what? If it's an older film, there's a reason that Shudder still has it available. So all I'm asking, it's not so much scorn, it's a plea. Help me to have my sanity back by helping make the genre a better place. Support the stuff that is actually good. And let the other stuff go away. If it feels like it was made by a machine, it was made by a machine. If you want a McMeal, that's fine, but don't order off the dollar menu. At least order something you'll enjoy. That's it.
It sounds like you're a little scorned by Christian. You're a little upset with Christian.
No, he's not. He likes me.
It sounds to me that sounded like an indictment against you, Christian.
Christian can get in my good graces again very easily. He knows what he needs to do this week. But the idea of not having seen The Beyond at this point, that's utter insanity. Utter insanity.
I've seen Troll 2.
I'm pretty sure The Beyond is on YouTube, man.
Lauren, you gotta give it to me though. I'm trying because I liked Train to Busan a lot, and I like Audition. So
Lauren, don't piss on Hospitality.
I'm getting there, man. I'm honest about it. I don't pretend to be. I've never pretended to be like one of these people that just claims like I'm a know-it-all, because there's a lot of people that like, there's so many people in this world that wears Beatles shirts and they couldn't name a song, and there's a lot of horror people that claim that they know it all. I've never done that, and I never will. So I love to learn and to find out about new stuff. So
Who is this Beatles you're speaking of?
yeah,
I think he's talking about Beetlejuice, like the Beetlejuice shirt.
I've said that too. He doesn't show up either.
Well, you got to pay for Michael, I guess.
The Bioexorcist.
But hey, I did love Train to Busan. That was really good. It was way better than I thought it was gonna be.
Did I suggest that to you?
Well, I said, hey, should I check this out? And you basically said something to the effect of, why haven't you already? So I was like, oh, we should check it out.
It's an amazing film. And again, you know what I like about that
Very
movie?
emotional. Very emotional.
It makes you feel something. I'm very simple. I'm not a complex person. Make me feel something, and I'm happy.
Like I said, I'll take subtitles any day over the week than a different audio. That's why my wife wants to throw something at me every time. I do think Suspiria is an amazing film, but I can't stand the audio not lining up perfectly. It just, I like to get, when I tell people why I like a movie, I don't typically say, the cinematography is great. Oh, the lighting and the stuff. I just say, man, that movie really affected me. And whenever I have something like that feels like a disconnect for me, it just really bothers me. I try not to let it. I really don't. So I'd much rather have subtitles than that, to be honest with you. So I don't know.
So next week, Christian, we're going to ask you, did you watch The Beyond? And if that answer is no, there's going to be repercussions.
If it's streaming anywhere, I mean, I can't just order it. I got rid of Amazon Prime. But if it's streaming anywhere, I'll watch it this weekend.
I'm almost positive it's on YouTube.
Okay.
Doesn't it live on Shudder permanently?
If it does, that's the first thing I'm going to do is Shudder. Because if I'm paying for Shudder, I'm going to watch it on Shudder, not YouTube.
They showed it on Halloween as the part of their live feed. So it has to be there.
Do I have to do House by Cemetery, or can I wait for my movie to show up in January?
Depends how if you blow us off about The Beyond, you're not going to get a chance to watch House.
No, I'm going to watch The Beyond. I want to watch it on my Blu-ray, man. I want to see my Blu-ray. Piz, come on, dog.
Oh God! Here's a new segment for the show. It's called Christian's Assignments. So his assignment for this week is to watch The Beyond. That's it. Just watch The Beyond. I'm sure it's on Shudder. If it's not on Shudder, you can definitely find it on YouTube. So there you go. Christian's Assignments.
Okay.
But there you go. All right. Anyway, guys, the career of Lucio Fulci. We did it. Again, mark your calendars for next Friday, the 13th. We will return with special guest Peter Brack, the author of the book Crystal Lake Memories, to watch and discuss 1980s Friday the 13th. It should be a lot of fun. And so thanks for hanging out with us tonight, guys. Thanks for a very lively chat. Thanks to the panel here. We had kind of a skeleton crew tonight. A lot of people busy. A lot of people dealing with this and that. But thanks, Christian. Thank you, Jay. Thanks, Lauren, for hanging out with me and talking about the films of Lucio Fulci. So, yeah. All right, guys. Have a great week. We'll see you next Friday, the 13th. Until then, take care and peace.